Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Welcome, Maverick family and new viewers far and wide from around the whole world, wherever you're watching tonight. Great to have everyone back. Appreciate you spending the time here with us. Great show lined up for you tonight. Great program. I don't even like the word show. You know, it makes you think that we're involved in some sort of show business, but I'm trying to do something serious here nightly. And tonight, I think we have a serious interview coming up with a film producer, a documentary producer, a director, an editor, a journalist, Jeremy Pilon-Berlin. He is the producer of, well, many documentaries. Tonight, we are going to talk with him about one in particular that really piqued my interest when I was taking a walk down memory lane the other night. He directed a documentary called Murders at the Burger Joint. And it deals with 4 murders back in 1978. It's a cold case. It has never been solved. And tonight, Jeremy will join us on the program to talk about the documentary. And, you know, this November coming up will be the 45th anniversary of those killings. It was a case that made national headlines, international headlines. It certainly received coverage in Canada as well as the United States, of course, nationwide. And there is hope among relatives that eventually the case will be solved, but it's been a long time. Well, there's absolutely value in what Jeremy has done with his team. The documentary available on Investigations Discovery. And tonight we're going to dig into the case a little bit, find out what led Jeremy to produce the documentary, why he did it. And we'll discuss a few other things too along the way, I'm sure. So stay with us for that. Also tonight, Joe Biden met with congressional leaders. They discussed what else? The debt ceiling. We'll have that for you. What else? A heckler in the House of Commons in Canada. Kind of unusual. Doesn't happen very often at all. But it happened today. We'll have that for you too. And we'll update you on the fire situation, the wildfire situation out in Western Canada. It is still a problem. Thick smoke blanketing much of Western Canada tonight, still, with those fires, many of them still out of control. So all that and a whole lot more coming up right here on the Maverick News Channel. Don't go away. I'll be right back with our interview, our feature interview with Jeremy. the producer of Murders at the Burger Joint.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my privilege, really. I want to start today talking about this project that you'd worked on some time ago, this television special called Murders at the Burger Joint. It piqued my interest. I like retro stuff, and I was online looking at old Burger Chef commercials, to entertain myself.
Yeah.
And I came across these old stories about this terrible murder involving 4 young people way back in 1978. And it is still something that haunts the community of Speedway, Indiana. How did you get involved in this cold case?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, Rick. So I got involved with this case because I work for a production company called Ample Entertainment, and they had just sold a series to Discovery, and essentially it was 6 separate cases, 6 separate 1-hour specials, and I was just assigned that case, luckily, because it's such an interesting case. So it was brought to me to direct and produce it. And, I just kind of dove in head first, kind of into the research side and learning about the case front to back, police records, testimonials from the people. And just the more I kind of read about it, the more interested I got into the case. And it being a cold case, sorry for the spoilers, that actually really piqued my interest at being a cold case, and, kind of why it went cold, and, why it never got solved 44 years later. Probably won't get solved at this point. Most of the people who could be responsible are passed away or gone missing at this point. But it was just a really interesting case, tragic case. And, a lot of different angles on it, a lot of different theories people had on it, which also interests me. There's a few different police agencies involved, law enforcement agencies, and everyone had their own theory. Essentially, the different groups. One group thinks it was definitely bank robbers. One group thinks it was definitely kidnapped, murdered. So that intrigued me as well. Just the various kind of perspectives, and people very staunch on their own perspective. Kind of like,
Yes. Because we had 4 victims here, and this goes back to 1978, and the names of these people. There's is it Shelby Fright?
Jane Freed,
Jane Freed.
Jane Freet, Mark Flemings, and Davis and Shelton. Yeah,
Right.
those are the 4 kids. Jane Freet was the only adult. She was only 19 at the time, and the rest were 17 and 16-year-olds. So, they were all kids. Really tragic. And essentially, for the viewers who don't know what happened, all 4 of them were working at a burger chef in Indianapolis, Indiana, which in the time, 1978, Burger Chef was essentially McDonald's #2 competitor. So they were like the second most popular fast food joint in America at that time. And they were working late and they were closing up shop. And around 11 p.m. ish, after they had shut down, they were robbed, and these 4 kids were kidnapped and taken 22 miles away to a deserted field and killed in 3 different fashions as well. So that was also kind of peculiar about the case, because normally in a killing, people are killed by a gun or by one method, but this was very odd because Mark was beaten to death, we believe, with a chain. Jane was stabbed in the heart with a knife, and the 2 others were shot execution style. So it was baffling to the community and the police. And yeah, I mean, the first essentially huge mistake of this case, and probably why this case never got solved, was because when the cops showed up that night, they thought the kids took the money and went on a joyride, and they didn't take it seriously like this was a crime scene, and they didn't treat it like as such. And so they let the restaurant open the next day. It got cleaned. So whatever evidence may have been in that restaurant was immediately lost. And so that really set the investigation back from the very onset.
Right. It was a day later or 2 days later or something, they found one of the cars not too far from the restaurant. And that's what really made them start to worry and look at it differently.
Yeah, I think after that night, and like once they spoke to the kids' families and everything, like these were good kids. And second of all, they weren't like friends. Like they were work cool buddies, but they weren't the type to steal money and go out partying together. They were different ages from different schools. They just happened to work at this same burger chef. So I think after about 24 hours, they realized, we need to be taking this seriously, to treat this like a proper investigation of a missing persons. And it took them 36 hours to find the bodies. Um, so, and then they found Jane Freed's car across the street, or, a couple blocks away, essentially. And that was also kind of confusing because they didn't really know who moved the car, why the car was moved, how these kids were transported 22 miles away. So there was just a lot of questions, and they didn't have any answers early on.
And so here we are over 4 decades later. There are still 2 main theories, I guess, that there was the possibility of 2 there was a spot, somebody spotted or say they saw 2
Mhm.
men
Mhm.
near the restaurant around that time. So that's
Yeah.
the first theory. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that's the one that we, kind of lean in the most heavily, essentially, and that we have that character in our documentary. And from meeting him and filming with him for a couple weeks, I believe his story essentially. I think people often hide things, but they hide things for different reasons. So I don't, I never, you always got to take people for what they're saying with a grain of salt, obviously, and try to fact check and look into it. But there was an eyewitness to the kidnapping aspect, and he was outside. There was a Dunkin' Donuts in the same parking lot as the burger chef right there, and he came outside for a cigarette. And as he's smoking a cigarette, he sees this orange van pull up, and he recognizes 2 of the people in there, and I'm blanking on the names right now because it's been a little while.
Yeah.
And he recognizes 2 guys, and he says that they loaded the kids into the van. There was some sort of argument. Mark Flemings, the only African American that he says was slammed up against the side of the van, which actually tracks with the blunt force trauma on his face. So that's you tell that part of the story, and that actually makes sense with the autopsy report. And they load the kids in the van, and they drive off. And there was the theory of Jane Freed's older brother was heavily involved in drugs, and there was also talk that she might have got involved with her brother. And so this was some sort of like payback for the brother not paying a drug debt, and that the other kids were sort of just collateral, essentially. Um, so that's always been like kind of the back and forth, like who was the main target of these four kids, right? And like why did they go? And there's two kind of thoughts on that. Either it was Mark or it was Jane. But the stuff with Mark is kind of a lot of cloaked in racism back in that time. And like the facts around him are very loose. Like, oh, they saw Mark smoking weed. It's like, what 16-year-old hasn't smoked weed? You know what I mean? So Jane, it felt like the information surrounding her, she was more tied to that world with the connections with her brother and from some of her friends we spoke to. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the main theory that we kind of focus on in the documentary.
And there's a second theory involving a man who was in prison facing a very lengthy prison term who came forward, and I think it was it 1984 with a confession? Tell us about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, so that other man, he confessed in prison and to the murders, I think he confessed to killing two of the kids, the ones that were shot with the gun, execution style. So that was Davis and Shelton. Um,
And this guy's name was Donald Forrester.
Donald Forster, exactly, Donald Forster, and he had a bad record. He was in jail serving a 99-year prison sentence for rape, and he had a pretty checkered past. And he also had claimed that these shotgun shells, or the shells from the bullets he had shot, he flushed down his toilet, and so the cops, even though this was 10 years later, he lived on a septic tank, which means everything he flushed down his toilet went to the septic tank. And they were able to dig him out, but they were the wrong shell casings. And when you kind of dug deeper into his story, it really had a lot of holes in it. And what we kind of learned as well is that the police were kind of hoping he was the bad guy. You know what I mean? And it was kind of like, if I give you this information, I'll get a lesser prison sentence. And so it kind of hit, once you kind of dive deeper into that theory, it doesn't really hold up at all. The other theory that didn't even make the documentary was that there was these bank robberies happening at that time, and a lot of burger chefs actually were getting robbed in that area and in the surrounding areas. And so there was thought that this could have just been a bank robbery gone wrong. And there are facts around that can support that theory. But what's interesting, with a 43-minute documentary, there's only so many theories you can put in there, obviously. There is about 6 or 7 running theories through the police departments and the sheriff's office about, there was a car scene leaving the burger chef where a guy threw out a gun out of his car that was the same caliber as the gun that was used to kill Davis and Shelton. Now, sometimes the easiest answer is the one that's right in front of you, but that was looked at, debunked, but you never know for sure. And that's the whole point. Like, if you think you know the answer for sure, then you don't know this case, because there's so many different possibilities, and that's what makes it intriguing, I think.
So, as a filmmaker, a director, what did you take away from all of this? Was there value in the project?
Oh, there was a lot of value in the project, I think. Anytime you could tell a story about, real people whose lives were ruined by, unnecessary violence, especially kids or, young adults, I think it has value, and people should hear those stories. And it's good to see all sides of a subject, you know what I mean, and to see the law enforcement side, and to see the family side, and to see the people from the town side, and to get that full perspective, and try to just put the information out there, and then let people decide what they think. But I think it has value, and I'm proud of the work that we were able to do. And I know at least the families appreciated it, because they want their story told. I think they still hold out hope that it will be solved. But 44 years is a long time. We've heard crazier stories, with technology and DNA and that stuff developing. But this one's going to be pretty difficult to crack, I think, at this point, because
Right.
at the end of the day, it could be an eyewitness account, but without hard evidence, you can't really get a conviction, just from an eyewitness account. You need something more than that. And that was the reason why the guy who spotted the people kidnapped the kids, he came forward with the information late, like years later, and they just didn't view him as a credible witness, which, he had, he drank a lot. He was drinking that night of, the spotting, though alcohol doesn't cause you to hallucinate, but the validity of him and his report wasn't strong. And people changed their story for all kinds of reasons we don't know. And so that kind of shot holes in it.
The community itself is still haunted by this. As I said, it's an incident that they carry with them. Is the community still going through a healing process of some kind with this? Are they looking as a community for any kind of closure, or is it something that's kind of in the distant past and distant memory for people?
Well, I think definitely with the older people in the community, it still is there. You know what I mean? I think every time they have an anniversary, it gets brought up again. They had the 40th anniversary, and the cops, they decided to release an image of the knife of what Jane Freet was stabbed with in the heart. And they released that image. It's an old rusty knife, just hoping, grasping at straws for something. But they did a press conference, and the sister of Shelton, Teresa, she came and spoke, and she spoke really eloquently there. So obviously for the people that it affected and for the people around that community, it still lives there. I don't think the younger generation knows, but essentially, if you say the Burger Chef murders anywhere around Speedway, Indianapolis, when I was there last year, people still knew it. It was not gone. It's a very well-known case. It got a lot of national attention. It was a big shocker for, that community, but it was a national story at that time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's still there, but it's, I think for the younger generation, not so much.
And that's exactly it. It was a story that did receive national, even international attention,
Mhm.
because it was also covered up here in Canada to some degree.
It was covered in Canada. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, we didn't have as much gun violence back then, and, so I think today, we've had more mass shootings in America than we've had days in the year so far in 2023. So it's just, it's a different time. And back then it was a rarity for these kind of things to happen. And now not so much. So I think with the 24-hour news cycle, people kind of, things get lost quickly.
Was there anything new, any new information that came to light while you were doing your work?
Yeah, I mean, the podcasters we had in there, they were actively researching the case, and still trying to find different people. I think some of the new information we found through them was these friends of Jane Freet who were able to corroborate that she actually was involved with this drug ring that her brother was involved with, and that her brother and his connections with some of the suspects. So that was some interesting new information we were able to uncover. And well, a lot of it was new to me, so it was all new. But that was probably the biggest piece of kind of new information we were able to find out.
So this is still can still be seen online, streamed through the investigation discovery websites.
Discovery Plus. So if
Yeah.
you have the Discovery Plus app, you can watch it there. You can buy it on demand or on. I'm sure you could stream it if you have the ID Channel app, the Investigation Discovery app. You can stream it there. And maybe, don't quote me, but since HBO and Discovery Channel and Warner Brothers are now one corporation, and now they're changing the name of HBO to Max, it might be on Max eventually. I'm not sure, but it's a possibility. It could be streamed there as well.
Yeah. And I guess you're still working in this same vein, right? You're working on a new project that is also a true crime story. Tell us what you're working on now.
Yeah, so I'm doing a series called Murder in the Heartland. It's for Investigation Discovery. This is the sixth season. This is the third season I've been the co-executive producer of. And essentially, it's a show, it's a contained show. So every episode, it's a new murder in a new small town. And yeah, I've been traveling across the country, currently in Missouri right now, doing an episode. And yeah, it's you know, it's tragic, it's uplifting, it's, each case has its own unique set of circumstances that make it interesting and hard as well to do. But every episode we always make sure that we have law enforcement involvement, we have family or friends involvement, and it's also really important for us to capture the town and the people of that community to like bring it to light and show that community, for what it is. So we hope it's a positive thing for the victims' families. They can, have it as something to shine a light on their loved one and keep them remembered, and also maybe just storytelling to help people not shoot each other. Hopefully.
Right. And I guess it's an opportunity for you as well to tell these stories from a human perspective, to
Mhm.
show people who the victims were as people so that they actually are remembered.
Yeah, and that's super key is showing these victims, like you said, as real people with faults and good things. And like, things aren't black and white. People aren't black and white. No one's good or bad. Everyone's a shade of gray. I mean, we all have things, right?
Mhm.
And that's the same thing with law enforcement. When we work with law enforcement, we just don't want to show them in a badge and the tough guy driving around with the gun. We show them at home and playing with their kids and doing things that they normally do and show them as human beings. And it's important for us to get people in those natural environments and showcase them as real people and give a 360 to a person, not just show them from one angle of just, you're just the cop, you're just the victim. You know what I mean? Show them from all perspectives. And then that gives the audience a real viewpoint of who these people are and who these, these towns are as well.
There must be certain challenges that come with doing this kind of work, because you're not coming in as the investigation is happening. You're coming in after the fact, sometimes years after,
Mhm.
um, digging into these cold cases. So, what do you do to work against the challenges of coming up with, say, footage and
Mhm.
images, pictures?
So hard, and all those cases are closed cases. So every case we do, the murder has been caught and put away. The murders at the burger joint, that was a standalone 1 hour special. So, but there are challenges. Like the case I'm doing right now is from 2005. You know, and so simple challenges. People's memories are faded. That's always a challenge. And people move away, and people die, and that's always difficult. Um, and it's sometimes hard to get the family on board. They don't want to relive it. They don't want to talk about it anymore. Um, so that can be difficult as well, getting the family members on board. But at times, sometimes people don't want to talk about this stuff. And then when I come in, an outsider who doesn't know all the things and listens to them and speaks with them, it can be cathartic for them as well, I feel like. And it can be helped to get it off their chest, have a cry about it, and that can help them process it more, instead of sometimes people bottle this stuff up for years and it just goes nowhere.
As a journalist, I always see value in telling stories uh, and looking at the human aspects of things, so that people not only remember but also learn, to take something of value away from it. But in Canada in particular, I've noticed over my career that sometimes murder cases in particular, or anything dealing with death, people here are not as receptive to this kind of content. I think about the Paul Bernardo, Carlo Homolka killings here in Canada, and a lot of that stuff, people just didn't want to hear about it anymore. There was there was a documentary produced, and people were against it. They like, don't talk about that stuff. But on the U.S. side,
Oh,
it
we're
seems,
obsessed with it.
yeah, it seems to be a really a different attitude, which I think is healthier,
Mhm.
honestly, because people are willing to just deal with information and just accept it and absorb it and learn from it. What are your views on that? Where's the positive and the negative in all of that?
Well, I think, it's interesting you said Canada is kind of the opposite, because I think now in America we have such a high saturation of murder content. I mean, you could just type in the word murder into any, streaming app, you'll find 100 shows. You'll find 100 documentaries.
Yeah.
So now we went from just being a couple murder shows to being a lot, and so I think it's good in one sense, but I think in a sense it can be too much, and it can be sensationalizing it a little bit. And feeding into the machine, I guess you could say, in some regard. Um, but I think you're right, and on one level, it is good that this stuff is happening. Let's look at it. Let's just look at it and accept it for what it is, and try to learn from it and move on. But on the other hand, it can be too much, and it can be a little
Sensationalistic, perhaps.
sensationalistic, and kind of promoting certain stereotypes, beliefs that we might have about law enforcement, or certain groups of people, and so it can have a negative side too. I think it all depends on like how you make it, and your ethics, and your sort of code of having that journalistic integrity, when you're doing documentary work, of really trying to dig into what the facts are, not what you want them to be, or how you perceive them, but really just trying to dig in and figure out what's there, and not telling your audience what to think or feel. I think that's a key difference. For me, every film I've ever made or show I've ever done, it's like not pushing an idea on them, just laying out the information as clearly and concisely as I can, and then letting the audience decipher that, and make their own call on it, essentially.
Yeah. So before we move on and get into this political discussion that I'd like to have a little bit, is there anything with regard to the either of those documentary productions that you worked on? Anything on that side that you think I might be missing, or that you'd like to add?
About those two shows?
Yeah,
No, but I will tell you about one other documentary I
sure.
wrote. It's called Failure to Protect. It's a feature documentary, and it's about three parents who lost their kids to Child Protective Services, and who are trying to get their kids back from the system. And it's told from the perspective of parents, because as I got deep into the child welfare system, I know Canada had a huge class action lawsuit against their child welfare system not too long ago, for the abuses they had against Native Americans. Um, but it's a sad, broken system, and it really doesn't listen to parents, and it really takes their voices and squashes them. So it was really important for me to make a documentary from the parents' perspective, and to give them a voice, and to show, we're human beings, and everyone makes mistakes, but do they rise to the level of your kids needing to be taken away from you? Um, and so that documentary went through the film festival circuit. I just signed a distribution deal. It's not available yet, but it will become available in the next couple months to stream. So
Okay. And do you know which distribution platforms you might be on at that point, or
I don't know
not
yet.
sure? Okay.
So when I do, I'll let you know.
There must be absolutely a political aspect to that, because what we're really talking about there is parental rights.
100%, 100%. Parental rights are a huge deal in the film, and for parents, and it is political for sure. You know, and I like the issue a lot, actually, because it didn't really matter if I was talking to a conservative or progressive about the issue. Like, they had different problems with the system, but across the board, here in America, all the professionals believe the system is broken, and they know it's unjust. They know, and essentially, obviously it goes back to money, where, well, how are these agencies incentivized, right? They're incentivized by taking kids and putting them in the system, because per kid they put in the system, they make about $4,000 per kid. So the money instead of incentivizing the money to give parents resources, give families help, right? If the money was incentivized that way, well, you wouldn't have a problem, right? You kids would stay with families, they would get the help they need. I mean, most of the time it's single mom with 4 kids, 2 jobs, you know what I mean? And they're a human being and they make mistakes. And what they need is help. What they don't need is their kids ripped away, thrown in the foster care system. A bunch of trauma happens to them. They get them back a couple years later. Then it takes them a couple years to deal with all that trauma that they went through. And yeah, it's a broken system, but it was eye-opening to learn about it. And it's a subject matter I'm really passionate about. And I think it's one of those things where if you never had contact with it, you have no idea about it. It's kind of like now in America, most people know the prison industrial complex is a broken system. I think it's kind of common knowledge now. Maybe 15 years ago, it wasn't. But most people know that now. And I would like that to be the same about the child welfare system, so we can get some real federal legislation in there to change it and get the incentives changed, remove hearsay from the courtroom. There's a lot of issues there.
Yeah, just follow the money and you'll see where the incentives are and why the system works the way that it does.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's an easy trick for most systems. Follow the money and you'll learn a lot.
Yeah. And
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
okay, I'm back. And Jeremy will be back tomorrow for a second part to that interview. We'll discuss tomorrow other documentaries he's produced. And we're in particular, the one that I really want to talk to him about is a documentary about Bernie Sanders, which goes deeper than just a look at Bernie Sanders. This was produced back in the last time Bernie was running for the leadership. But it goes beyond that. It looks at the way the media interacts with these campaigns. We'll talk about the RFK Jr. campaign, whether he thinks RFK Jr. even stands a chance when he's up against the big Democrat machine and the Biden machine, the Clinton, Biden, and Barack Obama machine, really. So we'll talk to him about all of that tomorrow. He'll be back. There's a lot of other things that we're going to discuss with him tomorrow that will take us into the present, not just the past, as we were discussing today. I think it was a very interesting interview, and it's something that even almost 45 years later now, that murder case still making headlines because of his work, and who knows what might come of what he has produced with his team, his other team members, on Murders at the Burger Joint, that burger chef tragedy in Speedway, Indiana. Let's move on to other news tonight, though. There are other things that we certainly want to take a look at, not the least of which is the debt ceiling. Actually, you know what? Hang on. let's not go down that road yet. Let's go and look at this arrest today of Josh Alexander of Save Canada out in Calgary. Josh Alexander, I guess, he's generally up and around the Ottawa area. We've seen a lot of him on Parliament Hill protesting at also schools, anywhere there's anything dealing with drag queen story time or transgenderism. Josh Alexander in Canada pops up. This young man was out in Calgary today. I would say he's not just an organic protester. He has become a full-fledged activist. He's clearly on some sort of a tour, or maybe we could call it a crusade. But today at another transgender protest, clashing with gay rights activists, and he wound up getting arrested. We have the footage. This is Rebel News footage. And I have to caution you here, as I did preview this footage, and I can tell you that it has been edited. So you're not getting the full raw feed here. I can see cut points in this, and as a result, I do not have the full context. However, this is the most complete video that I have seen thus far of what happened there today. So we offer it here for you and your consumption and your, I guess, scrutiny and judgment. Judge for yourself. So there he is in the red hat. He's pushed there. I guess you could even consider that assault, technically.
Look at you go, big one.
But again, there will be cut points in this, and I'm not sure why. Now, of course, you see he walked right into the fray there, didn't he? There, you see that cut point? Another cut point there. Now he's under arrest.
Sit. I got it. There's 3 Bibles back there for you guys. And they're arresting him. You police, you should be arresting Antifa. They're the ones that attacked him. What are you cowards doing arresting this guy?
So cuffs on him. I'm going to put him in the back. On his social media post, claims he was arrested for handing out Bibles. I'm not aware of any such charge. I don't think you can be arrested for handing out Bibles, so I would imagine there was some other reason for the arrest. I don't know what the charges might have been. We're waiting for more facts, more details to find out exactly what the heck happened out there today on the streets of Calgary, where Josh Alexander came into direct contact with LGBTQS plus I protesters, activists, 2 groups of protesters again clashing, and he wound up being arrested. I understand the police may have also taken action against some of the protesters, maybe at least 2 of them on the other side, but again, waiting for more information on that. to see exactly what happened, and I'm not going to jump to any conclusions here. I want to deal with facts, and nor will I take anyone's claim that they were only arrested for just handing out Bibles at face value. We'll find out what the actual charges were, and then we'll deal with that. Acknowledging, of course, that he may have very well been handing out Bibles. I didn't see any in his hands when he was coming into contact with people there, but maybe that's the case. I don't know. I'm just saying, let's wait for the facts, find out exactly what happened, or at least get as close to the truth as we can. Speaking of truth, people on the freedom side always saying that it's the mainstream media lying to us, complaining that we're always being lied to, deceived. Earlier, a few days ago, I proved to you that this narrative that was going around saying that Justin Trudeau wants to bring back vaccine mandates was not true. And we went through the entire policy document that was produced as a result of the Liberal Party convention about a week and a half ago to show you exactly what the Liberal Party had discussed and what they decided to put into their policy papers. So we went through the whole thing, didn't we? And discovered that, oh, yes, it's not true what they've been saying. These social media posts going around saying that because there was old information from the last election saying that they would implement vaccine mandates nationwide, especially for federal employees. And they made reference to that $1 billion that was to go to provinces to incentivize them to adopt vaccine passports. That was actually all old news. And for some reason, someone or some people decided to recycle that, start spreading it around, telling all of us that those mandates were coming back if the Liberals were reelected. Not true. Not true. Not to say that they couldn't change their policy platform before we go into the next federal election, but it's not in there now. It wasn't part of their platform at the end of the convention. And yet other streamers, others latched onto that. We kind of got duped into it as well. I reported on it, but then issued that retraction, that correction, and I have not seen even one other media outlet, not one other online streamer retract even a syllable of it. Not one. And I know it's just an outright lie. 100% lie. Well, there's another little piece of information going around tonight. I think it's been going around for a while, but it's also being recycled. That is also not true. How do you want to categorize this? Is it misinformation, as has been suggested by some other media outlets on the mainstream side? Well, here's the post. Bill S-233 is currently waiting for third reading in the Senate, it says. If passed, it will be made law, which means if you are not vaccinated, you will not receive employment insurance, Canada Pension Plan, OHS, social services, or pension that you paid into. This is part of the new social bank credit system. Also, 273 is, well, anyway, S-233. Pretty scary stuff, and it's scaring the living daylights out of people. That's been circulating for, boy, how long now? At least since almost a year. Since March of 2022, anyway. And as a result of that post, which has been circulating at least that long, I know that the government has been flooded with phone calls and thousands, tens of thousands actually, phone calls, emails, handwritten letters going to senators urging them to oppose Bill S-233. It was a motion which was introduced by Ontario Senator Kim Pate. But the problem here, folks, is that the whole thing is, again, not true. It doesn't say that in Bill S-233. Here's the bill. If anyone would take even 5 minutes to read the bill, which you can find quite easily, it just is not true. It just isn't true. Here's the bill. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you tonight. It isn't even that long, but I don't need to read the whole thing to you. It doesn't talk about any of that in here. What is this bill? This is a bill to look at establishing universal basic income. Preamble, whereas every person and then it goes on from there, and it deals with exactly that issue. But nowhere in here does it say anything about predicating eligibility on vaccination, nor does it mention vaccination at all or any kind of vaccine mandate. There's nothing in here about that at all. Nothing. Zip, nada, nothing. I'm just telling you. And that post, it's making the rounds. Again, it's being recycled. We also know that it originated, it's been traced back to a People's Party of Canada candidate. That's who started it. Sorry to tell you that, but it's true. It's just the way it is. So I just thought I'd let you know, because again, the story about bringing back vaccine mandates got people so scared, so upset, that there were people who were afraid. There were people calling me because they didn't know what they were going to do with their pets if they were arrested and taken away. They were so scared, but it wasn't true. And now this, I know that this is getting people upset and scared. I'm just here to keep you calm, okay? It's not true. That's all I'm going to say about it tonight. I will say this. I don't care what the competition is. I don't care if it's, let me just rephrase that. Even in politics, lying is not a winning strategy, not in the long run. And it doesn't sit well with me when lies are being used to manipulate people with fear. Shameful. Just saying. Lost me again. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Joe Biden met with congressional leaders today. Topic, the debt ceiling. There is a lot of concern, especially from other countries, that the U.S. might default on its debt. Is that likely to happen? I doubt it. They'll just raise the debt ceiling, print whatever money they need to print, push it out, get more inflation, and away we go. We've already discussed this ad nauseum over the past few weeks, but here we go again. So after meeting with congressional leaders, Biden had this to say. Let's pick it up.
I shouldn't go around other questions. I have a brief statement and I'll be happy to take your questions. First, I just finished, I thought, a productive meeting with the congressional leadership about the path forward to make sure America does not default, emphasize does not default on its debt for the first time in our history. I'm pleased, but not surprised to hear Republican Minority Leader of the United States Senate saying that at our meeting that the United States is not going to default, never has, and it never will. He's absolutely correct. We agree to continue our discussions, and we're going to meet again on Friday. In the meantime, our staffs are going to meet today and daily between now and then, and everyone in the meeting understood the risk of default. Our economy would fall into a significant recession. It would devastate retirement accounts, increase borrowing costs. According to Moody's, nearly 8 million Americans would lose their jobs, and our international reputation would be damaged in the extreme. The last part is me, international. Moody's did not say the last part about damage in the extreme. I made clear during our meeting that default is not an option. Repeated that time and again. America is not a deadbeat nation. We pay our bills, and avoiding default is a basic duty of the United States Congress. In fact, they did it 3 times under my predecessor without not one time creating a crisis, rattling the markets, or undermining the unshakable trust the world has in America's commitment to paying its bills. And I'll remind you, the national debt went up 40% over the 200-year, it went up 40% under my predecessor. And that's the problem we're dealing with today. I might note parenthetically, in my first 2 years, I reduced the debt by $1.7 trillion. No president's ever done that. I told congressional leaders that I'm prepared to begin a separate discussion about my budget and the spending priorities, but not under the threat of default. As I said, I've already cut the deficit by $1.7 trillion in my first 2 years in office. And the budget just submitted to Congress cuts another $3 trillion in debt over the next 10 years, my budget that I submitted. I made it clear that we can cut spending and cut the deficit. For example, my budget cuts $200 billion in spending by strengthening Medicare's power to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices. In addition, that's on top of the $160 billion in budget savings we passed last year by being able to reduce the price of insulin and other drugs for those on Medicare. And my budget cuts $30 billion in spending on tax subsidies for big oil companies. They made $200 billion. They don't need a $30 billion subsidy to drill. It makes no sense. Why are we handing them a $30 billion tax subsidy? And, it's time to stop doing that. And that's what my budget does, among other things. My budget also funds the Internal Revenue Code so that there's enough agents to thoroughly look at the taxes of billionaires in America. This Congressional Budget Office says it would raise $200 billion. Larry Summers, the former secretary, says it will raise twice that amount. It'll raise a lot of money. Why do they want to get rid of the people who, in fact, would be able to do those audits? And my budget has some of the strongest anti-fraud proposals ever proposed. It strengthens the number of inspector generals. Remember, I know some of you covered me with my arguments in the past with the last administration for cutting inspector generals as to how the money was being spent. And the inspector generals are watchdogs for taxpayers' dollars. And it's estimated that we'd save $10 for every dollar spent on funding inspector generals. My budget cuts wasteful spending, closes loopholes, and does one more thing. It makes the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations to begin to just start to pay some of the fair share, just some of the fair share. Speaker McCarthy offered a very different way forward. He's proposed deep cuts that I believe are going to hurt American families. Millions of Americans relying on Medicaid for their health care would be at risk of losing that. And there would be 30 million fewer outpatient visits for veterans to the VA hospitals. And we just increased the VA budget so they could accommodate seeing these folks. And we'd have to cut 30,000 law enforcement agents, FBI, DEA, Border Patrol, 100,000 teachers and support personnel would lose their jobs. And all of that would hurt Americans and leave folks behind. Look, now I know the speaker says, well, I'm not, he uses the L word, the lying word, but says I'm not telling the truth. All I asked him inside was, if you're not going to cut any of those programs and you're saying the cut is 22% across the board, then you're gonna have to cut a hell of a lot more with the programs that are left. No, we're not gonna do that either. I'm not sure. I don't think they're sure exactly what they're proposing. And if House Republicans take cuts in defense off the table, the cuts they have to make to other programs will be even deeper than that. And one last thing that's very important. The speaker is saying he's been trying to get me to sit down with him for 97 days. 97 days ago, we did meet in my office. I said to him at the time, I'm happy to talk to you. You submit your budget, I'll submit mine, and we'll talk about it. And I don't want to get any press person pointing anybody up, but I think you all remember my saying that. I submitted my budget on March the 9th in detail. He passed his plan, I think in the last or second to last week in April. 5 days later, after he finally put forward something, I called on him to invite him to a meeting with the other leading members of Congress. Look, over these last few days and weeks, there's a lot of politics, posturing, and gamesmanship, and it's going to continue for a while. But I am squarely focused on what matters, and we're getting to work. As I've said all along, let's discuss what we need to cut, what we need to protect, what new revenue we can raise, and how to lower the deficit to put our fiscal house in order. But in the meantime, we need to take the threat of default off the table. As the meeting ended, excuse me, I suggested we continue to meet, and the leaders, our staffs continue to meet, and the leaders meet again on Friday to continue our discussions, to see what progress we've made. So let me end where I began. This nation has never defaulted on its debt. It never will. Thank you, and now I'll take your questions.
And that's enough of that for tonight. A lot of coughing there from Biden. His age, I think, is going to be an issue going into the next election. And we are just days away now, the G7 summit to begin on the 19th in Hiroshima. And as I understand it, he has now canceled a stop in Australia because of this issue, the debt ceiling. So it is serious. But what choice does the United States have at this point? They have to raise that debt ceiling, don't they? They just have to keep it rolling, keep the money flowing. That means more money printing, more inflation. The inflation monster is going to be with us for some time to come. Very clear. In the House of Commons today in Canada, since we're on this political level, let's take it to the federal level in Canada, where something very unusual, something extremely rare happened. In the House of Commons, there was a heckler. The issue? Climate change, the environment. let's check in, shall we, at the House of Commons? And I'll show you what I mean. It all started during question period when Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, stood up to begin oral questions.
Oral questions.
Oops, hang on. Just hit the wrong button. Let me find it for you again. Sorry about that, guys. In my excitement, here we go. Hang on. Here we go.
The Prime Minister said that doubling our national debt wasn't a problem because interest rates were low. However, his own expenses increased interest rates and inflation. Yesterday, the Minister of Finance was unable to answer the question
It's coming
about
up.
how much interest we're paying on the national debt. If a mortgage agent wasn't able to tell you about the cost of a loan, they'd be fired. So why don't we fire the Minister of Finance? The Honorable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the person who was unable to answer a simple question was the leader of the Conservatives. My question is, what is his economic plan? Is he going to cut health transfers?
For our American
The
friends,
$200
this is the
billion
Deputy Prime Minister and
Our
Finance
government
Minister,
is
Chrystia
going to
Freeland.
invest in healthcare? Maybe. Maybe
In the
they'll
House of
cut
Commons, the
$30
public can come in and
billion
watch the
that
proceedings.
we
They go
will
through
invest
security.
in our national daycare system. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Very unusual to get a heckler.
Canadian citizens are devastated by floods, forest fires, massive storms, and deadly heat waves. Symptoms of global ecosystem collapse. Order. And our planet is dying right before our eyes. Instead of living up to our staggering potential as a world leader in green transition, I'm risking here. You mind?
And the audio feed was cut. Very Canadian thing to do. The camera does not pan to the protester. It stays on the Speaker of the House. Audio is
People
cut.
to do their job and then proceed.
Audio cut again. The Speaker maintains his composure, staying calm as always.
Continue. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the top, please.
The Prime Minister said there was no problem doubling our national debt because interest rates were low, Mr. Speaker. But
Just, we'll pause a bit.
I am surprised it carried on this long. Security is going to deal with this, of course. I think maybe the heckler is better behaved, though, than sometimes the members of Parliament themselves.
Wait another second here.
So what would prompt such a thing? Who would be behind it? Hard to say.
We'll come back to the questioning. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister said no problem with doubling our national debt, adding more debt than all previous prime ministers combined because interest rates, he claimed, were low. Well, his same spending has actually increased inflation and interest rates. Yesterday, the finance minister was unable to answer how much Canadians are paying for interest on the debt that she has racked up. If a mortgage broker couldn't tell you the interest payment on a loan, he'd be fired. So why is the finance minister not fired for her inability to answer that basic question?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's someone who we don't intend to have fired after the 2025 election, and someone who I actually think should keep his job as leader of the Conservative opposition. And I think one of the reasons he is going to keep his job is he can't answer a simple question for Canadians. And that is, what is his positive plan? What does he actually propose to do for the Canadian economy? The only thing that we know is he's going to cut. He's going to cut the $200 billion that we're investing in our healthcare system. He's going to cut the $300 billion we're investing in early learning.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
One thing we're going to cut is the carbon tax. In fact,
He's pretty slick.
speaking of that tax, we
question
know
period.
that the Prime
He's
Minister
sharp.
plans to raise it up to 41 cents a litre or $1,500 net after rebates per family. But what most people don't know is that there is a second carbon tax he plans to stack on top of the first one, a sneaky tax he calls a fuel standard that will hit home heating, gas, our factories, and countless other higher costs. So how much will Canadians pay in higher gas and diesel prices because of the second Liberal carbon tax?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am glad to hear the Conservative leader actually talking about climate, because the reality is the biggest challenge our planet faces and the biggest challenge our economy faces is building a clean economy. That is where the jobs are. That is where the jobs will be. We've invested $120 billion in our green industrial plan. It is creating jobs today. It will create jobs in the future. The Conservatives would wreck all of that.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Now, the question was about carbon tax 2. We already know what carbon tax 1. The Prime Minister has put in place a 14-cent a litre tax that will rise to 41 cents a litre. This raises gas, heat, and grocery bills. But now they're sneaking in a second carbon tax called the fuel standard. It has no rebate whatsoever, but will apply in every province and territory across the country. So if she's so proud of her second tax, why won't you tell us exactly how much it will cost in higher diesel, gas, and household costs per family?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader obviously doesn't understand that what every industrial economy needs is a plan to build the clean economy of the future. But I'll tell you who does understand that. An electrician called Jeff, who I met in Mississauga in March. And I was there to talk with him about the investments we were going to make in electrifying the Canadian economy. He knows that that means for him jobs. He told me I have the skills to pay the bills.
Yeah, wait till I show you this next story when
those
she's
skills will
talking
be
about
put to work,
electrification.
and Jeffs across the country will pay their bills.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What she wants is for Jeff to pay her bills with a higher carbon tax. Jeff will have to pay more tax on his vehicle, more tax on his home heating, more tax on the food that the farmers and truckers bring to him, who are taxed by this scheme the Liberals are putting forward. So I've already said the first carbon tax is 41 cents a litre and $1,500 net per family. Now the Liberals promise a second tax. So I'll ask again, how much will carbon tax 2 add in extra diesel, gas, and household costs per family?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Tax on a tax.
Mr. Speaker, what I want is for people like Jeff who have the skills, people like Jeff in Mississauga. His wife, by the way, is an emergency room nurse, and our investments in healthcare are helping her pay the bills too. But I want people like them to be able to pay their bills today and tomorrow and 10 years from now. And that means investing in a green industrial plan. Mr. Speaker, our focus is relentlessly on Canadians and jobs, and we've added 900,000 more jobs than we had before the pandemic.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
And we'll pull out of that And when I say you should wait for this next story about the electrification of the future, well, let's go back to Windsor, Ontario, where we were focused the other night because Stellantis LG said the federal government is not living up to its commitments for that electric vehicle battery plant that they said they were going to build there. Well, the Windsor Star tonight is reporting that Stellantis is now reviewing its entire footprint in Canada, its entire operation. Stellantis, if you're not familiar, if you're not up to speed with what's going on in the auto industry, Stellantis is the parent company for Chrysler now. It's a multinational. They actually have a bunch of different brands under the Stellantis, umbrella. Alfa Romeo is another company that they have, but Chrysler is one of the big ones. And Windsor's a Chrysler town. So here, I'm going to bring up the Windsor Star article because they certainly deserve credit for this. And I would put a lot of stock in this. These the Star, they have the contacts. It's their town, their local. They'll be talking without question to the union leadership there. They will be absolutely in touch with the local plant manager. They'll be in constant communication at this point with all the major players. So I think that when they're reporting what we're about to see here tonight, you can pretty much take it to the bank that this is accurate. So they're saying Stellantis LG is prepared to pull the plug on the Windsor battery plant now. Huge fanfare when this thing was announced, and not very long ago. So Stellantis and LG say they are prepared to take the next step and shut down construction across the entire Nexstar Energy battery plant site. And they're quoting sources, but I don't like stories that just use unnamed sources. But in this case, I think they're probably being very careful about this. It's a local story. This is the local paper. They're connected. And they're saying that the automaker is reviewing its Canadian footprint, possibly leaving Stellantis' Brampton production facility in peril due to the federal government's alleged hesitation in signing a final funding agreement for the multi-million-dollar Nexstar project in Windsor. Brampton, of course, is that factory that used to be a long time ago the American Motors Corporation plant. That formed the backbone of Chrysler's Ontario operation later. Back in the, when AMC was purchased by Chrysler, they rejuvenated that plant, and it's been very important for Chrysler in Canada. In Windsor, of course, that's where they used to build the Cordobas and now the minivans. And they're saying that the Windsor assembly plant is not threatened, which should be a huge relief to the people of Windsor, because without that plant, if that plant goes down, it would be a huge, huge blow to the local economy. Massive blow. Well, but this source says, quote, they are not bluffing. They're prepared to pull the plug on the battery plant. They're looking at their Canadian operations. Brampton is on the chopping block. The real estate is a real value at that plant. So they're looking at maybe selling the property. If the government, thinks there will be limited damage, they're in for a shock. They've already damaged the relationship for the future. So the Star did contact Stellantis for further comment on what they're reporting here, but they would not specifically address whether Windsor construction was facing an imminent shutdown. The source continues here. Well, actually, there is a quote here from LG and Stellantis. Stellantis and LG Energy Solution simply asked the Canadian government to keep its commitments in relation to what was agreed to last February and which led us to continue construction work of the Gigafactory in Windsor. That from Lou-Anne Gosselin, Head of Communications for Stellantis Canada. This uncertainty is unfair to our Canadian employees as well as towards Stellantis and LGES Investments, she said. And Stellantis also said that in addition to that battery plant, they were going to start electric vehicle assembly in Brampton. So, yeah, it's this would be a major blow to the economy, not just in Brampton, not just in Ontario, but all Canada-wide, really. Because like the energy in Alberta, the oil industry, the auto industry has for a long time been one of the engines that drives the Canadian economy. Government pushing this electrification, but we're also seeing just up the road, right, about 2.5 hours up the road in St. Thomas, Ontario, Volkswagen getting that $13 billion commitment from the federal government, from the different levels of government, $13 billion collectively to build that facility up there. And that's a whole lot more than the government is giving Stellantis LG in Windsor. The total cost of that plant, as I understand it, is around $5 billion. Don't quote me on that number. I might be confused. I think that's accurate, but don't take that to the bank. But I know it's a fraction. The government commitment in Windsor is a fraction of what they're giving Volkswagen. We don't have any other details at this point. We are still waiting to find out more. I don't know if we will find out the facts. This may never actually come out in the long run, unless sources like the one that the Windsor Star has spit the details out, but at some point, reveal them, leak them. But right now, they're kind of playing their cards close. I can't help but think that it's probably related to not just the federal government not living up to its commitments already, just months after making the promises. It's probably also Stellantis and LG taking a step back saying, wait a minute, they only offered us this much. And look how much they're giving Volkswagen up the street. That doesn't seem fair. And how are we supposed to compete? And maybe that's what it's all about. There might have been provisions in the agreement about competition, how much they're allowed to give a competitor. I don't know. I'm speculating on that. It just seems unusual for something like this to happen, especially so quickly, just months later, and the government's not living up to the commitment. Why would they make these promises? Like, that sort of just doesn't make sense. What, if the government run out of money, they just print more? Just like, I don't get this, but something is really not right. And this coming right on the heels of the Volkswagen deal, which was much bigger than the Stellantis LG deal. So yeah, man, it's like I said before, it's a slippery slope, man. It's a slippery slope. You start handing out free money, and everybody gets in line. Everybody wants their fair share of the free pie. Well, it's not going to be that simple either, to to compete heading into the future. See this here? Here's another story sort of related to all of this. This should be, this is how can I phrase this? This is like a red flag, a warning flag, something people better take note of now. Well, the government's handing out all this free money to kickstart the electric vehicle industry in Canada and the United States. What Canada is doing is really just following the lead of the Biden administration as they inject billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars into the electric vehicle industry. This is all being driven by government. Well, here's VinFast. They're going to start VinFast 8 deliveries in June. 781 VinFast vehicles have now arrived in Canada from Vietnam. That's right. I told you about this company some time ago. Long time ago, I talked about this. They're producing electric vehicles in Vietnam and in China. I remember when I was a kid, first it was a couple of Volkswagens, Beetles running around down the road, and everybody laughed. And the North American automakers said, it's not a big deal. They're junk. Oh, and then Volkswagen really took hold, and the Beetles spread. And then the next thing you knew, there were more imports from Europe. And then over time, you got into the 1970s, and the Japanese showed up, and they had a few vehicles on the road too. But again, the North American auto industry, the executives said, oh, it's not a big deal. Nothing to worry about. They're junk, those little cars. They rust out. They're not reliable, but they were. And it started with a few Datsuns, back in the day, which later, today it's called Nissan, but Datsuns, and then some Toyotas showed up. And then a few years later, you had the little 2-speed automatic Honda Civics. And those things started to sell, and they showed up here. And people fell in love with those things, and they were really basic. And still, the North American auto industry said, oh, we're going to be fine, until Chrysler just about went bankrupt in the 70s. What have we learned from all of this? Well, back then, the government bailed Chrysler out with a loan in the millions, not the billions, the millions of dollars. It was incredibly controversial. Lee Iacocca, the CEO for Chrysler, had to go to the government, cap in hand, begging. And they paid that money back early. The philosophy, the approach was different back then. But now it's like everybody gets billions. And if you're a smaller company, you still get handouts, and consumers get handouts. And here in Ontario, I think there are still some places where you can charge your electric car for free as the government tries to push this forward. But the foreign competition is still there. And when the government money dries up, when they run out of our money, when they get finished handing out our money to the big corporations, the big car companies here, and actually they're actually multinational companies, to get them to produce here, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I don't know. It looks to me like there's already new competition. The VinFast. I haven't driven one. I don't know what the quality is like, but this has echoes of the past for me. This is like, oh, there's the new Volkswagen Beetle, the 2023 version. Kind of see where this is all going. We ran that news conference yesterday, the shareholders meeting for Tesla, and a lot of positive talk from Elon Musk, but increasing competition for Tesla too, from all of the different car companies. Just saying, man, you're seeing cracks in this already, and they're barely getting started at this point with the electrification of the auto industry and our economy in general. And here it is. Here it's already happening. They don't even have that plant in Windsor built yet for electric vehicle batteries, and it's all falling apart. The government, I don't think sometimes they could organize a one-car parade properly. It's just, it's kind of pathetic and scary, because there is so much at stake. In this case, if they get this wrong, we're in a lot of trouble, man. They have to make this work, or we are deep trouble. And I was watching today, Scotty Kilmer, He's a automotive streamer, a mechanic, millions of subscribers, and he was talking today about auto dealers, a lot of them in the US, some of them, well, not a lot, but some, maybe even on the verge of going bankrupt because the banks are pulling back on auto loans, especially on the US side. Now, I don't see that happening here as much, at least I'm not witnessing that as much here on the Canadian side of the border, but there's no question the economy is slowing down because the government is putting the brakes on the economy. They are raising interest rates. As a result, the banks are taking this as a signal that they shouldn't be loaning out as much money. They know there's a slowdown coming. And even Elon Musk in the shareholders meeting that we ran yesterday for Tesla indicated that in his view over the next 12 months, it's going to be tough for the auto industry, especially over the next year. And he indicated that he thinks some businesses are going to go bankrupt. He doesn't think his business is going to go bankrupt. But we are seeing banks pull back, not offer as many car loans. And in some cases, some of the banks are committing, well, they're reducing their commitment for car loan offerings by about 2/3 heading into the next fiscal year. So that is going to really restrict the amount of available money for consumers who want to purchase new and even used vehicles with loans coming from banks. Restrictions, belt tightening on the horizon. Not good. Not good, especially for the government, which is trying to ramp stuff up. But like everything what they do with the economy, especially the auto industry, it's like they put their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. Subsidies and incentives over here and tax breaks and outright grants for companies over here to produce stuff. And then over here, they tax the living daylights out of things. It defies logic what the government does to me. They do it for political expediency, to score points. They say to the environmentalists, look at the taxes that we've placed on vehicle production. We don't want people driving. Look at what we've done. We're an environmentally friendly government. And then over here, they say to the consumers and to the auto industry, they'll look at, here's all this free money we've given away to stimulate the auto industry. Vote for us, keep us in power. Here's some more free money. You know, they, in Canada, some people say, oh, the elections, you know, they're not legitimate. Well, no, you know what? Oh, people voted. Oh, they did. They voted Liberal because the Liberals bought the election with programs, social programs, with money. They take your money, they give it back to you and to others, and then sometimes even more in the form of debt. So they're really borrowing money from your children and your grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren, and they're buying the elections. And in this country, man, just about everybody's on some sort of welfare. Even the corporations, they're all on corporate welfare. And if they don't get their fair share of the corporate welfare, well, they just take their bat and their ball and they just go play in another country, don't they? Stellantis, here tonight. The whole deal on the verge, falling apart. Just months ago, being portrayed as an economic savior for the community of Windsor, Ontario. Major automotive town, heavy automotive history, always been a car town. And now tonight, you know, I don't know. Tough times ahead. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, friends, tonight the number of wildfires in Western Canada up more, just a few more than there were yesterday. The count at the moment, 92 wildfires. The number out of control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 22, 23, 24. 5, about the same, probably around 30, 31, something like that. But we do have Alberta's safety minister queued up, ready to go. Let's get an update direct from the safety minister now.
Working around the clock right now just to protect our communities. From fighting wildfires to welcoming and supporting evacuees, many have stepped up to help battle these blazes and to support everyone who's been impacted. This support is critical to those Albertans who are facing immeasurable stress and uncertainty from these wildfires. Unfortunately, the hot and dry weather continues and the conditions for wildfires remain extremely volatile. The fire danger is extreme in the northern part of Alberta, with hot, dry, windy conditions expected to persist in the coming days. Our number one priority is that we fight these fires and we deal with the extreme fire conditions in order to protect human lives. It's important that we are all doing our part to support these efforts. That includes being mindful of the fire risks that are upcoming this long weekend as temperatures are expected to climb again. It will be critical to avoid any activities that might start new fires or make the current situation worse. Smoke also continues to be an issue affecting air quality and visibility right throughout Alberta. A special air quality statement remains in place for most of the province, with many areas still sitting above 10 on the air quality index. Keep in mind that a number of 10 or higher indicates extremely poor air quality. It's clear that the smoke from these fires continues to be a concern for both health and visibility. In areas of very poor air quality, people should consider staying inside as much as possible. And of course, we have Dr. Laura McDougall from Alberta Health Services who will provide more information on this shortly. As crews continue to battle these blazes, some communities have been mobilizing to evacuate, while other areas have already been evacuated. Since 2023 wildfire season began, approximately 38,000 Albertans have been evacuated from their homes or communities. As of this morning, 19 evacuation orders are in place. In more encouraging news, I was pleased to see that several evacuation orders have now been partially or fully rescinded. These include the town of Drayton Valley, where the order was fully rescinded, Brazeau County, which has partially rescinded its evacuation order, and the County of Grand Prairie, which has also partially rescinded its order. When it comes to reentry, we continue to ask residents to please be patient. Do not return until contacted by your local authority. The staggered reentry will help reduce traffic on highways and allow for safe reentry. Regarding reentry for evacuees from other municipalities, please contact your local authority for information on the current situation. We also ask that those who need to travel, whether be because of evacuations or for other reasons, should check with 511 for information on road conditions and closures. For everyone who has evacuated, please know that supports are available. Since the announcement of one-time emergency financial assistance for evacuees, more than 11,200 applications have been processed. More than $16.4 million in e-transfers have been sent to evacuees, and more than 3.9 million in debit cards have been distributed. Debit cards are available for evacuees unable to receive e-transfers at 16 Alberta Support Center locations with extended hours, and at Edmonton and Calgary evacuation centers. Please visit www.alberta.ca/emergency or call 310-4455 for information on supports, including evacuation payments. And if you are struggling with your mental health, please call or text the word info to 211 to be connected to digital or local support services near you. We are putting the resources and funding needed into ensuring that every Albertan affected by this emergency has the supports that they need. In conclusion, I'll be very blunt. This situation does remain very volatile. We must remain vigilant. I thank all Albertans for continuing to do their part to reduce fire risk. Please pay attention to fire bans and reduce any activities that could unintentionally start wildfires, such as the use of off-highway vehicles. And I ask Albertans in the impacted communities to please continue heeding the advice of local officials and obeying any evacuation orders that you may receive. Remember to visit, again, the alberta.ca/emergency for information on how to prepare for evacuation. Albertans are resilient. We will get through this together, and we are here, of course, to support you. So thank you, and I'll now invite Colin Blair from Alberta Emergency Management to provide an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
We'll stick with it for a minute longer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by expressing my sincere gratitude to all the firefighters, emergency responders, incident management personnel, staff, and volunteers who have worked extremely hard to support their communities during this difficult time. Alberta continues to be under a provincial state of emergency, and the Provincial Emergency Coordination Centre remains at level 4. In addition, there are 22 states of local emergency, as well as 5 band council resolutions. 11,990 Albertans remain evacuated at this time, and there are 14 reception centers open for affected areas. The total number of evacuation orders now stands at 19. All residents who are evacuated should register at the nearest reception center or online. Registering makes it easier to get help and resources to evacuees, and it makes it easier for officials to reach out to residents with important updates and information. So far, more than 18,100 people have registered. Regarding the extent of the structural damage caused by the fires, we have some preliminary information and are fulfilling our responsibility to allow local officials to speak to residents first. We will begin to provide this information in the coming days after communities have re-entered. Our thoughts are with those who have lost their homes or possessions. For those in a community on evacuation alert, the situation can change quickly, and an evacuation order could come at any time with little or no warning. Being prepared is key to saving lives. Albertans can find evacuation preparation tips and more information online at alberta.ca/beprepared. Pack an emergency kit that will last for a week or more with essential items like medication, identification, a first aid kit, flashlights, batteries, non-perishable food, cash, and clothing. This kit should be kept in an accessible location, ready to go at a moment's notice. We also urge people to have a plan to stay in touch with loved ones, as well as a plan for their pets. Alberta SPCA peace officers can assist with pets and can be reached at 1-800-455-9003. Evacuated farmers and ranchers should call the Wildlife Resource Line at 310-4455 with questions regarding livestock. To protect yourself and others, stay informed. The best way to receive the latest wildfire information is by downloading the Alberta Emergency Alert app. Everyone in potentially impacted communities should pay attention to emergency alerts and listen to local news updates. And please make sure the information is from trusted and verified sources. In addition to downloading the Alberta Emergency Alert app, follow your local authorities' social media accounts and other notification messages. As we head into the May long weekend, most of Alberta is under a fire ban. Obey these bans and follow restrictions to reduce the chance of starting new wildfires and avoid further stressing firefighting resources. Finally, I want to remind evacuees that we do have a nightly telephone town hall they can join. The calls begin at 7:30 p.m. and provide a great opportunity for evacuees to get the information they need. You can join the town hall by calling 1-833-380-0691. Thank you. And I will now turn things over to Christy from Alberta Wildfire for more information on the provincial wildfire situation.
Thank you, Colin. There are 91 wildfires in the forest protection area of Alberta. 27 of those are out of control. So far this year, we've responded to 485 wildfires, burning more than 728,000 hectares. The latest wildfire information is always available on our interactive map or on the Wildfire Status app. We have seen the area burned rise since yesterday. That's in part because many of the wildfires on the landscape did see some growth, and we were better able to assess their size. Smoky conditions can make it difficult to fly over wildfires, which can mean sometimes it takes longer for us to get an assessment. Winds have weakened today across most of the province, and temperatures are near normal for this time of year, but things will start to change tomorrow. It will get hotter and drier as we head to the weekend, and as we've seen, that can lead to more active wildfire behavior. Unfortunately, it was reported yesterday that a firefighter was injured while working on a wildfire. I can confirm that firefighter has been seriously injured in the area of East Prairie Métis settlement. News like this is felt by every firefighter, and our hearts sincerely go out to his family. This is a reminder to all of us about the challenges faced by firefighters and the risks involved with wildfire. While some evacuated Albertans have begun going home, we all need to remember that this situation is volatile. For those returning residents, please remember that we still have active wildfires on the landscape. If you see firefighters in your area, give them the space to work and keep a safe distance. As always, the safety of Albertans is our top priority.
Okay. Here's a look tonight at the smoke map. If you are living anywhere in pretty much North America, you could be affected by this to one degree or another, but certainly Western Canada, smoke is blanketing much of the country. There it is. That's active tonight. Those dark spots, those are the hot spots. And look at how far down it's sweeping, all the way down to Kansas City. Right up into the northern parts of Canada and parts of Ontario, dissipating before it really gets to the area I live in here, but that is a very large footprint for the smoke. So if you have respiratory issues, this could be an issue for you, a problem. If you're, depending on exactly where you're living and how thick the smoke is. But this shows you how big the fire problem is out there in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia tonight. And how dangerous. I think that we addressed that the other night. Please, everyone, stay safe. If the authorities are telling you to evacuate, you should listen. Keep yourself and your families safe. That's, I think, sound advice across the board. In other news, Montana has become the first state to ban TikTok. It's likely to be challenged, but they have completely banned TikTok. This happening today. The state's Republican governor signed a measure that is more sweeping than any other state's attempts to curtail TikTok app. Now, as I said, it is likely to be challenged in court, and it probably will serve as a testing ground for TikTok-free for a TikTok-free America that some lawmakers in the United States would like to see, and we've heard rumblings that in Canada as well, TikTok might end up being banned. The whole thing, this centers around concerns that information might find its way back to the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, because TikTok is owned by a company that is connected to the Chinese government. The company name is called ByteDance. I've only just started using TikTok a little bit. Like Twitter, I'm not really that proficient with it. I'm not good at Twitter. I never have been. I don't know. I just don't use it right. And this TikTok thing, also sort of short form videos. I guess they can be up to 30 minutes in length. I honestly haven't quite wrapped my head around exactly what the best practices are for using TikTok. Some of the videos are pretty entertaining, but if they're skimming data in a particular way, I don't know. I guess they could be manipulating information in the same way that the U.S. manipulates information with social media apps like Twitter, or at least they have in the past, Facebook, Google. And we've learned from the Twitter files released by Elon Musk that Twitter has been used by the intelligence services to really manipulate even foreign elections and initiate possibly color revolutions in other countries. So would the Chinese Communist Party use TikTok in a similar fashion here? I don't know. I wouldn't put it past any government, frankly, but it is being viewed by many as an assault on free speech, and I totally get that. So I don't know. This one's a tough one. Not so tough for me. I'd say just let it go. And if they want to regulate it in some way to ensure there are provisions put in place to protect national security, well, they should find ways to do that. Develop the technology and then overlay it onto whatever they need to do with TikTok to make sure that spying or cultivation of information or curating of information, I don't know, just they have to find a way to deal with this new technology with social media. They are way behind the curve, these legislators. Montana's new law does prohibit downloads of TikTok in the state, and it would actually end up, this is the way it would work. It would fine any entity or an app store that would make TikTok available to the public. And the fine would be as much as $10,000 per day for each time someone is offered the ability to access the social media platform or download the app. However, they're saying that the penalties would not apply to TikTok users. It's aimed at companies or entities that would facilitate the use of TikTok. So if you're using TikTok and you continue to use TikTok, they won't fine you. They won't come after you as an individual for using it, but they will go after anyone that makes the apps available. What is that going to look like in the long run? I'm not sure how do they enforce that, and what would stop someone from downloading the app and using it in Montana. I don't know. With VPNs, you can find your way around all of these things really to use a service like TikTok. And what's to stop someone from using a VPN to then download the TikTok app and make use of it in the state? I think they'll find this very hard to enforce. I think people who want to use it will find a way to use it, will find ways around the laws or the restrictions. And unless they set up some sort of an actual cyber wall around Montana to prevent TikTok from bleeding into the state through the internet, I think they're going to have a real tough time enforcing this at all. And what does make it available mean? Like, what does the Play Store do with something like this? How do they, I mean, I guess they can geo-block the availability of certain apps within the state. But boy, oh boy, things certainly seem to be getting very complicated on the regulatory front when it comes to the internet. It seems to me we were much further ahead overall when the government was sort of hands off on a lot of this stuff. It seems to me that they're trying to micromanage the internet when maybe what they should be doing is taking more of a macro approach to it, dealing with the big picture instead of cherry picking these individual things. I don't know. It's a very difficult future to navigate, isn't it? Especially now with the emergence of AI and its exponential growth. Even just in the last few months, we've seen really rapid growth in that area. I saw an app just yesterday, a new one that looks so good. It allows you to put different faces on people in videos, and it looks really realistic, and it's cheap. We've been talking about the use of deep fakes and things like that. And we're already at a point now, because the technology has progressed so rapidly, that people will be able to do it with their phones. You could potentially manipulate an election just by creating a fake video, by putting Joe Biden's face on something and convincing people that it's him, and then getting him to say something that he doesn't really mean. It's getting to be that good. For $69, you too can be the proud owner of a deepfake app on your phone and make the president say anything you want. There are ways to tell, but a lot of people are gullible, easily fooled. Anyway, let's take another quick break. I'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
I wanted to show you this too. This is off the NBC News site, but these are pictures of the Titanic. New pictures. Pictures taken in a new way, so that we can see the Titanic in a way that we've never seen it before. These are stunning images. says the first full-size digital scan of the Titanic has revealed the world's most famous shipwreck as never seen before, and experts hope that it will provide more insight into how the liner came to sink in 1912. It's located about 350 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. Of course, we know it hit an iceberg. And so these images were created using deep sea mapping. It's a unique 3D view of the entire ship, and it could break through a century's worth of human interpretation about what happened as it was on its maiden voyage from Southampton, England to New York. Pretty cool stuff. Like, I've never seen images this clear. I know that they have, they've managed to get cameras down there and submarines before, but these images are just amazing. Like, look at that. And you can see that it did break apart. And these were produced by Atlantic Productions and a company called Magellan using photogrammetry. It involves taking overlapping photographs of an object, structure, or space and converting them into 2D or 3D digital models. A shot from overhead. They built, do you remember this song? And I hate to, no, shouldn't I? Do you remember when you were a kid, that song? Oh, they built the ship Titanic to sail the ocean blue. And they thought they built a ship that the water wouldn't go through. Remember that song? We all sang it when we were kids. I was humming that 2 nights ago. Foreshadowing? Conspiracy theory. It's true, man. I was out walking the dog, like I like to do, and I was humming that song to myself, reliving my childhood. And now here we are 2 days later. Coincidence? Mind control? Who knows? But very cool images. Maybe we'll learn something more. People are infatuated with the Titanic story. Even today, all these years later. And that movie with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, it was a love story as much as a tragedy. Pretty good movie. Very well made. And now these images bringing back the past so we can bring it with us into the future, I guess. Technology continuing to evolve. Amazing images. Here's Fred, the freedom fish. Oh my goodness, look who showed up. For those of you who are not up to speed, we have Fred the freedom fish swimming around in there. There he is. He's hiding, you see, because he knows that mercenary, that guy with the gun, just invaded his territory. And we've been trying to create a utopian society for Fred, where he is the first inhabitant of this new aquatic country, living there all by himself, pretty much having things his own way. This was entirely his land. And now this guy shows up. What to do? Should Fred allow him to stay, or should Fred ask him to leave? And if he asks him to leave, on what authority? Who says this aquatic paradise belongs to Fred? What gives him sovereignty? What makes him the sovereign of this aquatic country? And should this guy be allowed to stay? And if so, by what right? Well, he has a gun. Fred does not have a gun. This is something that we're going to have to give more thought to. For those viewers who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, so you don't think that I've gone completely off the rails, this all started because of a YouTube ban, and then I was going to run just, aquarium video, for a while on YouTube to make sort of a censorship political statement. But it's evolved into more than that. I'm using this as an opportunity to explore what the creation of a country is all about and look at the social sciences behind everything that goes into making a country, the political issues, the drafting of a constitution, defense of borders, what constitutes sovereignty. All of these questions will be addressed as Fred now has to live with someone, not live alone. He's not there all by himself. And now the person coming in to stake a claim has a weapon, the might, the strength to assert himself into and insert himself into the country, whether Fred likes it or not. Is that right? I don't know. What will Fred do if more people or fish decide that they want to emigrate and immigrate into his country? How will this be resolved? Will Fred deport this guy with the gun? And if he tries, what would happen? Does might make right? I'm not sure. But things just suddenly got a lot more complicated, didn't they? In Fred's little world. He's not alone anymore. Not alone. You know, the polarization of our political climate here in Canada and the US, it's getting worse by the day. Here's another angle on that arrest of that Josh Alexander.
What are you cowards doing, arrested?
Sorry there.
There's 3 Bibles back there for you guys. And they're arresting him. You police, you should be arresting Antifa. They're the ones that attacked him. What are you cowards doing arresting this guy? Ross, do you have anything to say about this? Say it, just say it. You guys, Jesus saves you, loves you. Go get a Bible. I've got Bibles for you.
So that's another angle. Keeping in mind that this video as well picks it up at the moment of the arrest. It does not show us what happened prior to that, so I can't comment beyond that other than to say this is what Josh Alexander, the young man who was arrested, posted on his Twitter account. He says, "Today I was handcuffed and put in a paddy wagon for offering students Bibles on a public sidewalk in Calgary." Well, that's his story. That's the way he's portraying it. I'm not aware of any crime that would be committed for just handing out Bibles. My guess is there has to be a different kind of charge. I don't think the cops would arrest him and charge him with handing out Bibles. But we'll find out more, I'm sure, probably by tomorrow, if not later tonight. He says, "I was released and told if I returned, I would be arrested and charged." So he wasn't actually charged. "I continued handing out Bibles, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ." Well, this arrest has enraged some people, especially people of faith. Some people saying that it's now open season on Christians, which we've heard before. And I would say that in some ways that's true. The state certainly has declared, if not a war on Christianity, they're certainly in conflict with it in many ways. But there's a more complete story to be told here, I think, than just what we're getting on social media. CBC News, mainstream, right below with this. And this is the other side, right? The polarization I'm talking about A Winnipeg school was left shaken, it says here, after its pride flag was stolen just days after several books that covered LGBT and Indigenous themes were taken from a teacher's classroom. Two totally different perspectives, two total different worldviews. Where can we meet to discuss? Nowhere, it seems, these days. We're speaking different languages. Who's telling the truth? What is the truth? I'm questioning everything these days, every single thing. Doesn't matter where it comes from. I'm giving everything extra scrutiny, putting it under a microscope. Everything. Anyway, it is now 8:11, so let's go to the phones. I'm going to take a quick break while I set them up, and then you guys can join the conversation. Do not go away.
Fighting the Great Reset. By leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, I'm back, but not for long, because I am going to run this promo to show you and tell you exactly what phone number to call tonight. Because the phone lines are just about open. I am still working on it. Let me find the right promo to run here. There it is. And here it is for you.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And thank you to Fred for holding down the fort there while I was just stepping away for just a second. Time to go to the phones. Let's get this thing cranked up, shall we? Let's pull Fred off there. All right, let's put Fred up there. There we go. There. Fred can swim around and earn his keep. Well, we get ready to go to the phones. Okay, first call up. Let's see who we have here tonight. Go ahead, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Rick. It's Chris calling. How are you tonight?
I'm fine. How are you?
I just thought I'd touch bases quickly on the wildlife fire out here in Alberta.
Thank you.
So they've actually gone from bad to worse. My son actually got evacuated yesterday, and from the Swan Hills area. And I guess that there's two fires, one to the north of the town, one to the west of the town. And as of 2:30 this afternoon, the fires are still encroaching on the town. I think they're like 6 kilometers out now. My son is just, stressed right out. We've been trying to get him that financial support there, and they're saying that you have to be out for a whole 7 days. And yet I heard Danielle Smith say that if you're forced to leave, you automatically get it. So he applied and he got denied. So we're trying to get him help through other channels right now. So yeah, things are not good. You can smell smoke in the air even where I live here. The winds are just, they don't nonstop.
Well, so he was denied assistance through the government programs that they set up?
That's correct, because what they're saying is you have to be literally out of your home for 7 days before you allow that $12.50. But I'm pretty sure Danielle Smith retracted that, because a lot of people were going, well, he's on low income and it's the middle of the month and he's been forced out and he has to get to a hotel. He's in a hotel. He didn't exactly know where to go. That was another thing right away when he got evacuated. So he ended up going to a town called Westlock when he should have gone to Barhead, which is now further east. We did manage to get him registered so they know he's not in the town and that he's safe. But yeah, not everybody's getting accepted for this money.
Right. And that's in your son's case is because he hasn't been out of his home long enough. Is that right?
Correct. So I said, well, let's try to go into some other resources. We got lucky. He was able to get his hotel paid for. I'm not sure how that worked out through the services. Anyways, as long as he's staying there. And his disability was able to give him some money for the week for groceries. And then hopefully come Monday, if he's still out, God forbid if he's still out of his home by then he should be able to get that $12.50. He should be able to apply for it at that point. Mm-hmm. But it's really stressful. And his girlfriend, she works for the town, so she hasn't been able to evacuate yet. She's going to be like the last of the last to leave with like except for the fire department. No, there's been no helicopters flying over, no water bombers, nothing yet, because they were fighting the fire to the west. And this is a little bit like Valley View and Swan Hills are kind of right beside one another.
Yeah.
So as of last night, the fire was about 7 kilometers from the town. My son lives on the edge of the town where the fire is coming in. So we're, it's this waiting game every day of not knowing. I can understand why people are getting upset, right? Because you don't know what's going on, right? So it is stressful. I mean, it's not even my house, and I'm stressed out.
Yes.
I don't want to see my son lose his home, right?
Of course.
So it's bad for everybody. The stress levels. I mean, everybody's talking about it. The problem is there's so many fires, and there's just not enough help. There's just they're trying to recruit volunteers, but they're saying, have some fire experience. People are still trying to take matters into their own hands and fight these fires. And do you remember last week when we talked, you asked me if I heard any rumors about if these fires were being started or not?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, the internet's just flooding with rumors now. I heard one today that someone said, oh, Russians are here and they're driving around setting them. I've heard others say that Notley and her crew are doing it. I mean, they're saying those weather balloons that flew over had something to do with it back then, created something on the ground. It's just unbelievable. It's just, I don't know if I want to laugh, cry, if I want to be angry.
Yeah.
because, you know, you don't realize it until it's close to you now of what's going on. And I have to tell you, some of these so-called freedom fighters are still encouraging people to go in and fight.
No doubt.
And in fact, I know of one today that I heard is actually driving around up in the north, trying to help out wildfires by himself.
Yeah.
And that's the one that you said that he said loves everybody. That's all I'm going to say to that.
Yeah.
He's got videos out today. So yeah, so that's what's happening out here. I did want to mention to you. So you brought up the Titanic, and when I went to school, I did a project on that, and I got an A+. I've been fascinated with the Titanic all my life. Those are fantastic pictures, just amazing.
Yes.
But do you remember the very first Titanic movie that was made, The Unsinkable Molly Brown?
Vaguely. I used to own a video store years ago, and so I had all these old movies in there. We were a very eclectic video shop, kind of like me, kind of eclectic. We had all like art films and old classics, everything from Charlie Chaplin to Dr. Strangelove, you name it, all that stuff. Nosferatu.
Oh, right
all
on.
that. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good Titanic movie.
Yeah.
I can't remember who played in it though. I can see the woman, but I can't think of her name. And as far as your little Fred there,
yeah,
you better watch they don't come in. You better watch they don't come and take the guy's gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you just posted on there he's got a gun, right? So anyway, I thought I'd make you laugh. But yeah, no, it's be interesting to see what happens with that now.
Yes, it's a volatile situation, to say the least.
It is, but it actually makes me laugh. You make me laugh because it's kind of know where you're going with this, but it's also really cute, right? Like it's how you word things. It's really cute. I want to give you credit. Thanks for giving me a laugh every day.
Well, I think it's going to be a useful exercise if people can wrap their heads around where I'm trying to go with it. It's going to force us all to look at, the law and what goes into forming a country and how social contracts between government and the people are created. And I think it's very useful, especially right now, as people are questioning the legitimacy of our very governments. When we're seeing people lose faith in our government, and to the point where we have people out driving around trying to go around police blockades because they think that the government is setting these fires in Western Canada on purpose.
I know. That just, it just blows my mind. I hear you. I hear you for sure. It's really getting out of control. That's all I can say. And a lot of conspiracy theories crap. It's getting worse. There's no doubt about it. Day by day, it gets worse.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, it's like it's everywhere now. I'm seeing it everywhere. It's very concerning to me. I was warning people like over a year ago, saying this is like a cancer within the freedom movement itself, and it's affecting people's mental health at this point. People can't tell the difference now between reality and complete fiction.
Well, and that's it. And like you said, you don't know what to believe, and it's a good thing. I'm glad that you go through everything because obviously others aren't, and there's so much fear mongering and stuff going on out there. And I mean, no wonder people are just stressed to the gills. I mean, we got this election coming up on the 29th, and with all these fires going on, I don't even think people are even focusing on that right now.
Yeah.
Like, they're so worried about their homes and financial and this and that. And then, of course, we got the long weekend coming up. And, I'm hearing a lot of people are not going to go away this weekend, but, you're still going to get those that want to go camping. And you can be sure they're going to try to have fires or ride their ATVs. And, that's the last thing we need is more fires starting. Like, seriously, I think everybody should just chill this weekend. Like, just, why would you want to go sit in the smoke in a campground anyway?
Yeah. And was it last year or the year?
Like,
it was just recently. I don't know if it was last year, the year before, maybe the year before that because of the pandemic, but the Russians actually, I remember them offering to, in previous years, send in water tankers to help fight the fires, and the Canadian government, I think, said no back then. But man, I think too bad we couldn't get them to come over here now. But of course, there's no way with the conflict going on in Ukraine now. Like, they're not going to help.
No, but you know what? I don't understand why why Trudeau isn't calling them, or well, of course, he's away in Japan, so he could care less. But I mean, you think the States would be coming up here offering, like, they have huge water bombers, especially down in California when they have those big fires down there. Yeah. Like, I don't understand why they're not calling for more bigger help like this.
They should be, in my
I think that's what's also,
yes.
Yeah. Like, my son, he wasn't angry until it happened to him. And I'll tell you, he's going, how come they're not flying over? Well, they're not doing nothing. There's only the fire department here. Yeah. I said, because there's not enough people and there's too many fires.
Not enough resources.
So we're just, so every hour he's stressed out. And every time that I get a text from him, it's like, oh my God, like, it's unbelievable. And I'm glad that some people are being able to return home. I'm very thankful for that. Mm-hmm. But there's still way too many that are displaced.
Yes.
Right now. And they're running out of room in places to put them.
Yeah.
Like, it's not getting any better. And this weekend, with the hot weather and these winds, I don't know. I don't know where it's all going to end. But I thought I would just call you and give you an update as to what I see, being I live out here, and what was happening with my son and everything that's going on. And all these rumors that are circulating are just absolutely insane, as far as I'm concerned.
Me too. Yep.
And I guess that's it for the night.
All right. Thank you very much for calling. I'm going to rely on you to keep us up to date in the days ahead, because it's important stuff people need to know. Thank you.
I will do that, Rick. No problem.
You.
Hey, thank
really
you.
Great.
Have a great night. Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, go ahead. Who's on? Who do we have now? You want to talk about Fred?
Yeah, it's Fred that doesn't want to talk about Fred to start with. Okay. Anyway, I will address the lady from out west, and I will reassure her that I spent a lot of time on working support work for fire crews, that they are doing the best possible thing they can out there.
No doubt.
And let's keep in mind that it wasn't too long ago that the town of Slave Lake was burnt over.
Yep.
Now, the first priority out there is to look after human life and make sure that we do not lose anybody to fires.
Right.
The second priority is they start to look after people's houses and stuff like that. And if they got a water source of any kind, they will put sprinkler systems on the houses, and they will do their best. I know crews from Ontario, I believe it was 2010, were out in BC putting sprinkler systems on what had been already built for the Olympics that year. Ontario people are great people that know how to use water, and they can put it on the sites. But believe me, they are drawing on resources from all the way across the country, and the Americans will step up, and right behind the Americans will be the Australians. And that's the way it will go. And we don't need to call on Russia to come over here and help.
They're not coming anyway. Not now. Not this year.
That's the first thing I got to deal with you tonight, Rick. Okay. Second thing is you kind of took off a little bit on Biden and his increases in the national debt, and we're talking about the debt ceiling. But let's talk about some facts here. Mm-hmm. We've got your buddy Trump that increased national debt by 40% over his term in office.
Oh, yeah.
Most of it relating to the tax cut that he gave to the wealthy in 2017. And as far as pumping money into the economy during the COVID, he pumped in, the debt was increased by 4.3 trillion in the last 10 months of his service.
Yep. No,
So
no
you can
arguments
comment
from me on him spending that kind of money. He certainly was not behaving like a fiscal conservative. Quite the contrary.
Oh, okay, and the last point that I got on my sheet here tonight was that just a while back, you got a friend there, I'm not sure what his name is, but he was out there taping some kind of F. Trudeau protest in some parking lot in a Canadian Tire store.
Oh, well, I don't know who that was, but
well, I'm
he's not,
sure
he's
you
not,
do.
he's not
I'm
my
sure
buddy.
you saw it.
It's just
no.
video that
Well,
I
he's
picked up.
one of your right-wing dinglings. So, okay, but here we go with my point.
Whoa. Hang on a second. Whoa. Are you calling me a right-wing dingaling?
For sure.
Okay, just being clear.
Do you think you deliver? Do you think you deliver everything out here on your program from a central point of view? It doesn't read a little bit right at all, does it?
Ha. Well, thank you for calling me.
Well, yeah. Come on, Rick. Come on,
my
all
left,
right.
my
But anyway,
left-wing woke friend.
Yeah, my left-wing woke friend. I'd like to. You can tell me everything that I've told you tonight there that would make you indicate that I'm any kind of a left-wing woke friend.
Did you call?
I told
did you
about my
call to discuss
experiences.
or insult? Are you here to insult me and
Pardon me?
others, or are you here to talk?
No, I present my facts. But here we go. Just the last little bit that I would like to do here, and I'll sign off, is that let's talk about a protest that was made in a Canadian Tire parking lot in Oakville, Ontario.
Yeah.
And we had maybe 40 FU people standing around playing rock music and waving their FU Trudeau flags.
Yeah.
Now, if those people are truly Canadians, they'll show up in Ottawa on Thursday at the Canadian Tire Centre, and they'll honor Sergeant Eric Muller with 21 years of experience on the OPP, who was killed serving us. Now, that's all I got for you tonight, Rick. So you can say whatever you got to say.
I'll say thank you and look forward to the next call. Have a good night, my friend. We'll do it again. Here's Antonio. Sir Antonio, how are you this evening?
I'm well, Rick. Good evening.
It is a good
evening.
evening.
Last caller, there was no need for that disrespect. I mean,
it's all right.
There was no need for that at all.
We're not as far apart as he thinks. He's just trying to pick a fight for, I guess. But it's all cool.
Yeah, there's no, you can do it respectfully. If you want to pick a fight, do it respectfully.
It reminds me.
That's the way I see it.
My ding-a-ling. Remember that song?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
I guess I'm a right-wing ding-a-ling.
I do.
What do you have for us tonight, Antonio?
Well, I have some comments, questions, and perhaps some answers. Like as far as Josh is concerned, I'm more inclined to believe Josh rather than the mainstream media, simply because if Josh is God-fearing, which he appears to be, he would not lie because he fears God. And as you know, Rick, the one subject that is dear to my heart and that I believe is of great value and have found to be of great hope, I can't speak of because they canceled you for doing so, right? So I would be more inclined to believe Josh's story rather than the mainstream media.
I haven't even really looked
So
at
that's
the
my
mainstream media to see what they're saying about it tonight. I don't even know if they've mentioned it. Everything I've shown so far
well,
has
you
come from it's got the Rebel News
the
logo on
CBC
it, but
stuff.
it's actually from multiple people online streaming that stuff, right? And then there was a True North article that I saw, and then it's just his post. And all I'm saying is I don't know what all the information is. I know that the one video was edited, and I'm just looking for the facts. And see, the one thing that I know is not accurate for sure is he's saying that he was arrested just for handing out Bibles. And I can pretty much say that that's not accurate. Cops don't arrest people for handing out Bibles. He might have been handing out Bibles, but they surely had some other reason to effect arrest. A violation of a condition, or because there was a conflict happen. There's had to be something else. They don't arrest people for handing out a Bible. Like that wouldn't
You would
be
think
the
so, right?
reason, right? That's what I'm saying.
Right. No, I understand. But then again, I never thought that we'd ever be canceled for speaking of the word, right?
Oh,
So,
that's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's YouTube, right?
So-
That's YouTube for you. We just mentioned, I mean, you guys the other night, you and Ian you were reading, well, you were discussing the rapture. The next thing you know,
that's right.
they've got they're all, well, you know what they did. I don't even want to talk about it because they'll probably
Right.
do it to us again.
Yeah, that's why I'd rather not. But I'm not sure what YouTube has to do with the phone lines, and why would they censor you for being on the phone?
Because it's not about being on the phone. You know what it is, Antonio? I think I think those people who decided to exercise that level of censorship probably had no idea what you were talking about because they're probably not familiar with the rapture.
Right.
So they were interpreting everything that you said in probably an incorrect way. They thought that you were going on about some sort of conspiracy theory when in fact you were just discussing the Bible.
Yeah, it was just
and I guess
quoting
you
the
could interpret the
right?
Bible as a conspiracy theory if you wanted to, but it's been around for a pretty long time and a lot of people have discussed it. It's like it wasn't like we were doing anything that far off the beaten path, but it was enough for that. And
Well,
that's because
Rick?
people they don't know things anymore.
Yeah, but it's not the first time they try to cancel it. But I tell you this, the gates of hell they're not going to prevail against it.
Yeah.
So they can try, but it won't work. Anyways, also I just wanted to make an addition to what I think is important to add to Freedom Fred's Constitution.
Sure.
Like a couple of weeks ago, I think we were on. I suggested that if another fish desires to be part of the tank or country, we'll say, that they should earn their keep. I'm not sure if you recall me saying that. So I believe it's also important for Freddie to have some compassion on the poor and disabled.
Okay, but before we get into all that, and I want to try and keep this incremental, deal with one thing at a time so that we don't kind of go all over the place with these discussions. Right now, the issue facing Fred is he had the entire country to himself. He is therefore, our community here has declared him to be indigenous, right? And now he has the issue facing him right now is this person has basically invaded his territory with no permission. He's just crossed into his sovereign territory, and this person is armed with a weapon, a gun that gives this person more power than Fred. So where is this going to lead? Should Fred confront him and eject him or deport this guy or try to? And if he does, what is likely to happen? And does this guy who has just wandered into Fred's sovereign territory, is he in violation of any laws, natural or common laws, or any written laws, any codified laws? Well, he doesn't have a codified law in this country. Fred doesn't have a constitution per se, right? So this is very similar to, say, European explorers or Spanish explorers or English explorers or French explorers showing up on the shores of North America for the first time and walking over and saying, hey there, friend, we're going to stay. And now you have the First Nations peoples, right? And you have you see where I'm going with this? So what's this guy going to do?
Yes,
Does he get to stay or does he get deported? And if he's got a weapon, that's another complicating factor. So this is something for us to think about. We won't resolve it tonight, but we're going to have to deal with it.
Respectfully, Rick.
Yeah.
I don't think the idea of Fred being indigenous to the tank is practical.
Okay.
And the reason being is Fred had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
He didn't just show up there, right?
Okay.
So it all depends on what you believe in your history. It may go to the issue of what came first also, the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
And in my view, the chicken came first because it was created.
Okay, so it all depends
And
on how far
even if
back in
some
history
were-
you want to go, right? Like, did you know that if you take the world map and you take the land masses and you bring them together, they actually fit together like a jigsaw puzzle and make one giant land
I've heard
mass?
that.
It's true.
Yes, I've heard that.
So that suggests
Yes.
that our land masses at one time, there was only one land mass. And if that's the case, then I guess, like, you want to go back that far? Were human beings alive at that time?
That's where I'm going. Well, that's what I think. Like even languages, where do languages come from? No one, I looked into it long ago about looking into the where languages came from, and no one could give you a straight answer, but only one place did, and that was the Tower of Babel. Right? God confounded their languages, and they went out. Right? I don't want to go too deep into this.
Sure.
But, just for the reason of, so it depends on what you believe, what your history is, what the history is, right? But yeah, like to your credit, Rick, as I recall, you gave another scenario in which I agree more with, and it appears to be more realistic. It's where you gave this example that if you were God, we would say God with a small g, just not to get over our heads, where you were looking over the tank and were able to see everything at one time or omnipresent. I'm not sure if you recall that.
I do. Yeah.
So that's what I think would be more realistic. If that be the case and you created both Fred and the tank or the country or all things, then I don't think it would be too hard for you to reveal to Fred to have laws set out to govern that tank in a righteous manner.
Well,
you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, but nevertheless, now we're getting into a discussion of existentialism. And does Fred have free will? Even though there is an omnipresent godlike figure presiding over his domain or dominion or republic or whatever it ends up being. So these are even larger questions. And Fred does not have direct communication with me because, he can't speak and I can't live in his environment and he can't live in mine, but I know all about him. He doesn't know about me. But what he did become aware of just before we came on the air was a giant hand came down and actually planted that mercenary figure into his environment and allowed that person to enter his sovereign territory. So that probably scared the living daylights out of Fred. Now Fred probably has some sort of a religion because he's aware that there's some omnipresent godlike figure presiding over him. And maybe that will form the basis of a constitution that will respect his God-given rights.
Right. And I believe that if you're a righteous God, you give him free will.
I shall.
And it says, choose this day whom you will serve. Right? That's a choice that you make. So God gives us the free will to choose.
And Fred is going to have to decide or choose whether this guy gets to stay or if he has to go. And that is something we're going to have to discuss at another time because we've got the call stacked up. So I really have to move on,
Got you, my
Antonio. But
friend.
great call. I appreciate it very much, sir.
You're welcome. All the best to you. Peace be with you,
And
Rick.
with you as well, my friend. And here is Dragon up next. Hello, sir. How are you this evening?
Hello, my good friend Rick in Canada. How are you tonight?
Just fine.
Hope you're not cuckoo for your cuckoo puff.
I'm getting pretty cuckoo. I'm a dingaling is what I am, apparently.
And the left is too.
Yeah, but I'm your
Christ.
dingaling,
No.
folks. I'm your dingaling tonight.
You're my favorite. Hey, you know what? Freeland. You know your good friend Freeland.
Yeah, Christia,
Our
Deputy Prime Minister,
mhm.
Finance Minister, yes. How come everybody's my
yeah,
friend tonight?
well,
1 minute, right? One minute, some right-wing dingaling with a video camera is my friend and makes me a dingaling too. And now Christia Freeland's my friend too. How can I have friends all over? I guess I'm just easy to get along with.
That's probably why. Oh my God. Well, you know, Freeland, I had an idea about that, actually, what you said yesterday and the other day too. You know, well, we all know her Nazi, say, background and stuff. Well, see, it's all come around. I don't know. I mean, can we see the dots with our ancestries, perhaps, the CIA, and all what the CIA have done in Canada back in the day, still and probably still going on today? Say, for example, a certain Karl Kloss being part of the CIA back in the days, which was actually a German dissident.
Sorry, are you asking me a question? Or did I lose
Yeah,
you? Okay.
kind of.
Okay, I didn't quite catch the question. I didn't quite get it. Maybe there was something wrong with the audio.
Okay, well, I was actually thinking about Karl Kloss, right? Was a former CIA
Okay.
and actually was a German dissident from World War II, right?
Yeah.
Like all those kind of, well, there's a few of them that went for actually the NASA and so on. But yeah, he's part of the CIA, right?
Okay.
So we get Karl Kloss, right? What about those experiments like MK Ultra in Canada and so on, right?
Oh,
That
this is
has
like the video that you
probably-
sent me today, right? You're kind of going down that path. Okay. So what exactly is
Well,
the
probably.
question? Yeah. So what's the question to me?
Well, the question: Do you think there's some dots that we can connect to that person and probably some other person that was around him?
Oh, no
that could
question,
probably
no
bring us
question about
to
it. You know, and to those of you who think that I'm about to start speaking like some far right wing dingaling, I'll direct you to the video that we did on the MK Ultra program as it was propagated in Canada. When, you know, in Montreal at an actual hospital there, and the class action lawsuit that is proceeding in this country as a result of the MK Ultra mind control program that was there. So there is no question that those programs like MK Ultra, and there were others that the United States government engaged in, conducting experiments even on its own population without the knowledge of the people. Those have their roots, many of them, in the experimentation that was taking place in Nazi Germany back in World War II. I don't think there's any question about that. These are facts. And the MK Ultra program was a very real thing. And you can find all kinds. It's not just me being a right-wing dingaling conspiracy theorist. You can find all kinds of mainstream media articles about it. There are CBC documentaries about it going back to the 1970s and 1980s. Those experiments were continuing even up into those times. They were using LSD as one of the drugs as part of the MK Ultra experimental programs being conducted in Canada under the watchful eye and direction of the CIA, which is now in that class action lawsuit in Canada, saying that they're not liable for that because they're not Canadian, which is honestly ridiculous. And yet somehow I think they'll get away with it and probably not have to pay any compensation at all, even to the families of these victims all these years later, because they'll almost claim some sort of like international diplomatic immunity. But it's a very real thing, and we know that the Nazis were involved in this kind of work, and then through Operation Paperclip, many of those Nazis came to Canada. We know that Canada has the largest Ukrainian diaspora outside of Ukraine anywhere in the world, and we know that many of those Nazis came from some of those Ukrainian communities that emigrated to Canada after World War II. Not to say that all the Ukrainians out in Canada are Nazis. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that Canada absolutely has a long history of it. We've shown it here. We've shown you the documentations of that. We've shown you the memorials honoring sometimes Nazis right here in Canada. We went over that on this program about 3 weeks ago. Last night, we showed you more evidence of that Nazi, I guess, culture still in Canada, right back to the 1950s with that Toronto Daily Star newspaper article that Lori sent over showing that there was an actual bomb, terrorist style attack back in the 1950s that was being attributed to Nazis in Canada at the time. It was a gunpowder bomb that was directed at, I believe, a church, and it was loaded with steel projectiles. So these things have been around with us for a long time. And I know as a journalist, I covered a Nazi war crime back in the 80s. It's a very real thing in Canada. And there's a long history of it. So no, I don't think there's any question that kind of experimentation has taken place, might even still be ongoing to some degree. And mind control, absolutely. The CIA has been involved in that. And we're seeing it being employed in fifth generation warfare, psychological things. These are facts. I mean, it's not, that being said, we have to stay centered and it's not, how can I put this? It's not, you need to keep it within the realm of reality though, right? I mean, of course, governments are involved in trying to influence people's behavior. It's called propaganda. And it's more sophisticated now than it ever has been before because of social media. Television amplified those impacts. It became much more sophisticated than just dropping leaflets on the enemy from airplanes, right? Then you had TV, Radio Free America. So you've had the power of television and radio, and now you have the power of the internet. So it's just technology.
Well, if you look, for example, at your phone, right? All those beautiful colors to look at when you want to just look at your tools or apps. I mean, it's basic propagandist or MK Ultra in full blown right here.
Yeah.
Because it's the way that it will just get your mind into your phone or whatever thing that will give you that dopamine dose.
Yeah.
Just to not look at what's going on. Look at my right hand. You look at the left hand while I'm screwing you up by that dying. And this is the way I feel,
And I showed you again
we all
tonight
feel
that
this
all
way.
sides are engaging in some sort of propaganda, psychological warfare, however you want to describe it, right? And I showed you tonight. Here's and more. It's being described by the mainstream media that post about S-233. That bill, which says, if you don't get your vaccine, then you can't get your employment insurance and blah, blah, blah. Bill S-233 doesn't have anything to do with that. Bill S-233 is about universal basic income and exploring how to implement that in Canadian society. That's what Bill S-233 is. So that tweet is being described as misinformation by the mainstream media and some in the government. I would call it a lie.
Right.
That's what I'd call it. It's just an outright bloody lie. So it's coming from all sides.
And I also to say about, Poiliev when he used the sentence common people. Well, to be quite honest, it's like you said, it's a Westminster politic ideology speech, basically. This is all what it is, it's just a term that they use to reference common people in the House, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because we have the House of the people of the Commons.
Yeah, the House of Commons, the House of the people. The word commons referring to common men and women. The common, it's just us, right? We're not the ruling class, but we are the ruling class because we have a democracy. So it's the House of Commons, the House of the people. It's just a parliamentary way of saying it instead of an American or republic style way of saying it, right? It's not we the people, it's the House of Commons.
No, I think it's just probably a political correct way to put it in a way.
Yeah.
We probably jump to some conclusion sometimes. Some people probably are fearing that he's probably part of the WEF, or there's probably some truth in there. We don't know. We have to see what's coming, and vote, guys. Don't just sit on your ass getting that dopamine thing and thinking that your voice don't have any hold or anything like that. You need to vote. You need to put your name there. Yep. We are 38 million people passed in that little country. We need to put that voice heard. We need to put that in their mind.
Right.
At least if we get the PPC as a minority with the PP or vice versa, you know what? I'm going to be fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Down.
Well, we'll see.
And you know what?
Yeah.
To give you a point, with World War III, right? Or a world war, what does it take for a world war? Basically, it's the economic and the military countries involved use that economy for the weaponry use and target. Well, those targets, if they are in, say, a good target for, say, for example, you will target a bridge or target ammunition or even power plants.
Mm-hmm.
Already, this is strategic targets. So those strategic targets make already that a world war, and with the implication of many countries. So, people think probably we're not on world war yet. It's not like you don't see those nukes already, but no, it is a world war. It's just that it's not yet blowing up from everywhere.
Yes.
And there's probably some reason why.
Okay, well, listen, I got to get you to wrap up because I've still got calls in the queue and the clock is a ticking.
Well, I will just say that I don't think that Putin will probably put some nukes around because he doesn't want a wasteland. So he's not going to be the first one to push the button.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Thank you, sir.
So on this, I will wish you all a good one.
Thank you. Have a good night. Okay,
Later.
Here's Pam all the way from BC.
My ding-a-ling, my ding-a-ling, won't you stay with my ding-a-ling? Woo, it's Miss Ding-a-ling calling from BC.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Ding-a-ling Hour.
We are covered in haze here on Vancouver Island. Believe it or not, it's starting to make its way over here. I guess the fire haze,
Yes.
So, but I can't smell it yet. But I have smelled them before coming from the interior of BC, and especially when all those pine trees were burning a couple of years ago in the 100 Mile House. You could really smell that. And I was in the weekend my mom passed away we had fires on both sides, and the ambulance came to get her from my house to take her to the hospital. They just made it through, but I went to follow her in my car, and I couldn't get there because the roads were all blocked.
Wow.
And it was just a matter of minutes, and it was so eerie. We woke up that morning, and the grass, it was really a beautiful green grass lawn, and all of a sudden it looked like a yellow green, and the sky was a really strange color. And I said, Mom, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden the smoke, you could start smelling the smoke. So it is a little scary when stuff like that happens.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. And, but anyways, I just wanted to say to that, you had that Lefty Dingling call in, and he might want to join the Ms. Dingling Club here, which I'm going to form to maybe wake people up, and because it doesn't matter if you're right or you're left, it's more about connecting the dots, and you showed the Titanic tonight, right?
Yeah. I did.
Okay, well, so I'm pretty much into history. I've been into history for 40 years because I do a lot of genealogy, and I look the history up of all the people. And John Jacob Astor, he was a colonel, and he was very wealthy, and he was on that Titanic ship, and he was opposed to Woodrow Wilson's plan to change the currency system over and try and get it away from gold. And they were starting to work on it way back then and turn it into the fiat dollar. So he might want to look that up, but he might want to watch The Spider's Web, Britain's Second Empire. And it's a documentary. It's on YouTube, and it's about an hour and 18 minutes. And if anybody hasn't seen that, it can really, really explain things. And the next thing I want to say is, you have to look at who was killed on the Titanic. And that lovely lady who called in earlier, that was Debbie Reynolds, played that part in The Unthinkable Molly Brown. And and it was a great movie. And but I actually had relatives that were supposed to go on that, and they couldn't, because one of them got sick and they just canceled their tickets. So I think we've even still got the tickets. They're probably worth something. But they didn't go. And there were a lot of other people that didn't go, but and there's a whole documentaries on that, but I won't get into it. And so but the other thing I wanted to say too was, I served in the military, and one thing we knew for sure in the military, that we were very aware of this, a lot of us, especially if you talk to the older guys, like the veterans from World War II, that during World War II, we had what we called them Japanese fire lanterns. And they actually, here in the Gulf Islands, all around Vancouver Island and whatnot, we found 3, the military found 3, and they were designed to set forest fires without any person ever being present.
Okay.
And that's a fact. That's a fact.
All right. And I'm just going to get you to wrap up because we've got still more calls and it's getting late, Pam. So any final thoughts tonight?
I just wanted to share that. I just say, Mr. Lefty Dingling, please watch The Spider's Web, okay? Watch that documentary.
Okay. All right.
and it makes New Year. All right. Take care.
You.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Here's our next caller. Who do we have?
You got Fire Marshal Bill Collin, Rick. Let me tell you something, Rick. Smoking and drinking in Alberta is not a good combination.
How are you tonight?
If Trudeau uses his hose, the same hose he used down in Windsor, Ontario for the LG Stellantis plant, that fire would be out.
Well, I'll tell you, that whole situation in Windsor really sucks. But
well, Rick, it fucking sucks. I'll tell you why. I got a lot of friends down here. And this is about the South, the man without a plan to master all disasters coming to you. And I can't wait for FU Friday because I'm going to drop some bombs on Rumble like you've never heard before, folks. So tune in Friday. And I got a lot of friends that work in that plant, that are working on that plant, that are not working today. And I can tell you one thing, Rick, the lawsuits are going to be piled, okay, because the contracts are signed on the whim that the government was going to give this money, and they promised it.
Yes, they
So
did.
there's going to be a lot of lawsuits to come, Rick.
I don't get this one at all, Leo. I don't get it. How can the politicians come down there, hold news conferences, pat each other on the back, say they're doing this big thing, promise all this money, and then now suddenly it's like just months later with the shovels already in the ground, it's like it's falling apart. I've never seen this before.
60 days later, Rick, they were down here talking all the shit, groundbreaking, the whole 9 yards. You had Ford, you had them all down here. Dave Cassidy and the Sundance Kid from the local 444 pumping it all up.
Yeah.
It's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of people are going to get fucked on this one all the way to the end, okay? And if Volkswagen's watching, well, you know they are, okay? Volkswagen's watching. If they're not giving Chrysler's the $6 billion to do this, they're not getting their $13 billion.
Yeah.
So the government's going to be sued at all levels because, like I said, I got friends that are contractors, okay, that are working on that site, and they're not working today, but the deals are signed.
Oh my God!
Who's paying for it?
Us, all of us, all of you, everybody. We're going to pay for it. We always pay for it.
Exactly. The government gets sued. It's not the government that's paying. It's the taxpayers at the end of the day.
Yep.
It's me, you, and everybody else that pays taxes in this country, not the welfare people that are living on tax money. Yeah. It's sickening, man. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Everybody's just going to lay down. What is it? The right wing dingling, give a dog a bone. Ricky Walker's coming home. I'll tell you what, that guy there, Rick, I don't know. His name's Fred?
Yeah, I
guess.
guess.
Said his name was Fred, right?
Yeah, his name is Fred.
Well, drop dead, Fred. Drop dead, Fred. I'll tell you what, you're not going to tell a bunch of 20-year-old protesters at a Canadian Tire Law, if you're a Canadian, come on down to Ottawa and protest the death of that police officer. For starters, people don't even have enough money to go shopping at the buck or two, never mind drive from Toronto to Ottawa, pal. So get down there to your Canadian Tire and protest for the officer. That it's sad that the officer's dead. I get it.
Yeah.
But people don't have the money to go to the next block over. Okay, and it's getting ridiculous. It's getting sickening. And, how much more can people take? The camel's back will break at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
So thank God for free the weed. That keeps me sane.
Wow.
And it's ridiculous. The future in my eyes is going to be really screwed up over here, especially if this don't work out for Chrysler's.
Oh yeah.
Dave Cassidy, I don't like him. For starters, I went to high school with the guy. He's a big lug that he was bullied every day in high school, okay, and now he's the president of the local 444. He thinks he's Jimmy Hoffa. The only thing he has in common with Jimmy Hoffa is he's a fat fucking pig, okay? And when he sat there and said, well, I'm going to come down there with my union people down to the bridge because we were protesting and we foreseen what freedom was going to look like here, and that was a couple years ago down at the Ambassador Bridge, and I was there. Yeah. When Dave Cassidy said that, I laughed. I would think he got the balls to come down here.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mouth, right?
I remember him saying that. Yeah.
And he did, right? He is trying to make it like the Gangs of New York with Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, and I'll tell you what, he ain't got the balls because half his membership that was down there at the bridge protesting.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Force your members? A lot of them were Chrysler workers that had enough, okay? Yeah. And Big Three workers that have had enough, and tool makers and truckers and everybody. It was a combination of society, right? Yeah. The tales are written on the wall. Now they're just coming true, right? So hold on to your seats, boys and girls. Put your seatbelts on because you're going for a ride. They won't be in some fucking EV car. I'll tell you that right now. You ain't going to be able to afford one. And I really like that 57 Corvette you put in the fish tank, by the way. There,
Oh,
Rick.
yeah. It's pretty nice, isn't it? Yeah.
That's beautiful. Hopefully Fred's driving that.
Yeah.
Or you get him a mate and he starts driving her. Who knows, right? He's got to drive something. You can't keep the fish in isolation like that, man.
Yeah,
It's gonna go crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Do fish go crazy?
This fish is.
I've even been thinking,
crazy.
I make sure I turn the light out at night and just leave a little bit of a light in the room for him. I'm so worried about this fish because of exactly what you're saying. I don't want to drive him crazy. I thought, who would want to live in a tank with the light on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? It's just constantly daytime. That's be torture. So I turn the light out at night.
It sounds like the Canadian judicial system in prison. Okay, and when you're in solitary confinement, they leave the lights on sometimes for 24 hours a day when they want to be pricks.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just the way it is. Okay, and you don't know what time of day it is, and while you're in there, you really don't care, right? But that's what they do, right? So yeah, it'll drive you crazy. That's a fact. Yeah. So I don't know about fish. Really, I don't know about fish. All I know about fish is, for $12.99, Pat and Hank's got really good fish and chips on for sale every Friday. That's about all I know about fish.
Yeah.
And it's a good deal.
Now I'm getting hungry.
So with that being said, stay tuned for FU Friday. It's Hump Day Wednesday, and we're going to get there fast, Rick.
He's excited. Leo's excited for FU Friday. Okay, sir.
I'm ready to go FU on everybody. I can't wait, Rick. Woo-wee!
Okay.
Woo-wee, Ricky Bobby.
Thank you, Leo.
Adios.
Love talking to you. All right. I'm looking forward to Friday. All right. Let's move on here. We've got Steve up, I think.
Yes, Rick.
How are you tonight?
I'm all right. I just had a couple of really quick comments for you. I know it's getting late on you there.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, Pam triggered me there briefly too. She was talking about those, I think she called them Japanese fire lanterns.
Yep.
I remember learning, in the 90s, I guess, probably is when I heard about it, just as a student, that the Japanese used the air currents and to use passive bombs, and they were still finding them up into like the 70s and 80s. They could be all over the mountains. They really don't know how many were sent or where they landed. And they would just put them on a balloon and let them go, and they just wanted them to get over the North American continent and just drop wherever and hope that it hit something or just cause havoc or chaos. But anyway, so yeah, she's not wrong there for sure. And Antonio, I'm glad he brought this up because with Fred, this has been something that's been bugging me. You say indigenous, and I'm with Antonio on this. I don't think he's indigenous. It's like he's found his island, courtesy of, well, as Antonio put it, I think a lowercase g maybe or whatever. And I'm kind of with him on that as well. To Fred, you might be omnipotent. I mean, you drop manna from his heaven every day into the bowl, I'm sure. So, yeah, Fred might not know the extent of what you're capable of. He knows you carried him from some other, some other water, brought him and put him there, and his
All the
keeper.
way from Thailand, and then to the fish orphanage, and then to here.
Yeah. So, as for all Fred knows, you could be his god. I don't know, or for all we know, for that matter. And like I said, you're kind of dropping manna on him every day. So, you kind of stepped a little further forward than I thought you would by introducing your little army dude there.
Mm-hmm.
So I had other thoughts about how he might start his country, because you remember there are certain things you need to start a country.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'll just make this quick comment about the army dude. Start with a conversation. It always works best, I find, is you start with the conversation, even if he is armed.
Good idea.
Yeah. So,
Hopefully
I know I didn't give any.
Hopefully, the Army's mercenary guy just doesn't shoot Fred in the head as soon as he approaches and proposes a conference.
maybe it's less than lethal. I'm not sure what kind of gun he's armed with.
I don't know.
But yeah, so anyway, maybe with first contact, it'll be a conversation as opposed to the new guy shooting a bullet at him. But anyway, yeah, there was one other little point that I forgot, and obviously it wasn't worth remembering. So I won't take up any more of your time tonight, Rick. I thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. All right.
All right. Have a good night.
Take care. Here's, I don't know. Is it Jason?
Hello.
Oh, no, it's not.
No, I wasn't going to call in. Again, another call where I wasn't going to call in. Hi, Nana. I'm calling in. Anyway,
you can't just do that. You have to introduce yourself for our viewers and listeners abroad who have never tuned in before, because we have new people every night.
Well, the folks in the chat know me as Notable, and they call me Note. And I just really needed to call because I need to clarify this Pierre Poilievre point. It seems that I've been grossly misunderstood, and I want to clarify.
Okay.
The thing is, I totally get the common word. That was not my point. My point being about this man is there's a long list, which is growing, about on his silence about several issues. Now, I wasn't going to call in, so I would have a list and them off to you. But honestly, it's last minute that I felt like I had to defend myself.
I didn't mean to attack you. I was just commenting on it. It wasn't meant.
Well, no, it just sort of felt like.
I totally get the tone. Like, I can see why some people would interpret, not just what he said, but how he used the word common people.
Yeah. That's kind of, honestly, was far from the point for me. The point about the whole thing is, with all the stuff that he's silent about, he should be busy addressing some of this and answering these very important questions that everybody has for him. But he keeps sidestepping very much like Trudeau does. And he's out there while all this crap is going on, and he's out there making these stupid little videos to appeal to get more naive people to vote for him that aren't going to question him about all these issues that he's being silent on. This is what makes me crazy. And he uses catchphrases like drive it home, the common people. It's so obvious to me that he is manipulating. And he's like all these unanswered questions. I really wish somebody would put him on the hot seat and make him answer all this stuff, because the list keeps growing. Nothing to do with using the word commoner at all. I guess the point is I can't stand the man at this point. I used to not like him, and now it's just getting to the point that I can't stand the man. And if it was FU Friday, I would state that very clearly. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why you're so emotional about him. Like, you've really got a hate on for him. You really
I'm not emotional about him. I'm just frustrated because every time I see him sidestep issues and not answer questions, it just makes me nuts. There's a lot of stuff.
Like what? What's he sidestepping? Like the Agenda 2030 thing?
It's everything, all the issues that are on the plate. And like I said, this is why I didn't want to call, because I didn't want to get into all this, because it's totally sidetracked off of the show.
I was just looking for, like a few points on what the issues are specifically that you'd like him to address. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to ask him.
I would happily sit down and write a list so I'm clear about it. But like I said, I wasn't even planning on calling in, and I just wanted to clarify, that was totally not even remotely what I was getting at about that video.
Okay.
Not at all. And I'm not emotional about him.
Oh, okay.
Let's get that clear.
I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to gaslight you or lead you or, suggest anything. That was just an offhand.
Well, no,
comment,
I just wanted to clarify, because Dragon seemed to latch onto that too, thinking that it was about that word and blah, blah. No. It's bigger than that. It's the man needs to be dealing, like, if he really wants to get real, legit, solid voters, he needs to answer a lot of these questions that people have for him. And he's not. And he seems to target certain subjects that he's very well versed in and stuff, and tries to be cute and funny. I mean, it's just more like I remember Trudeau.
Like an example of an issue that you want him to talk about that he's not talking about?
The SDGs is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
His support for the war, two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Those are major. What's going on with the children in our country? What's going on with MAID? I mean, there is a lot of hot button issues going on that he should be stepping out in front of everything and making himself be a champion for the people that he keeps calling us that, you know, he's part of the common people. He's not proving that to me. That's only some of it. And like I said, I didn't plan on getting into all this, but it makes me crazy because I don't want to see his cute little lame ass videos, and I'm not using the F word at YouTube. I don't want those cute little videos. I really don't. I want to see some really tangible stuff come out of this man and prove to us that he is really for the people, because he's not actually showing that. Am I clear enough now?
Sure.
Or was I too emotional about it?
No, I don't mind emotion, as long as it's accompanied by rational thought. And I think that you kind of pinpointed the issues and made yourself pretty
That's
clear.
not all of them. I can't think of the other. I know I had a big list, but that's just some of them. And like I said, I would rather see him not hanging out at an airport doing a cute little video and trying to make himself be a common man with the common people, but stand up and speak for the people. There's children dying. There's children being manipulated.
Okay, we got to stop. We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on YouTube.
Right. Tube. Anyways, this is why I didn't want to call, because I am passionate about this stuff. Not emotional. There's a big difference. I would like to see somebody for a change actually speak about this stuff and stand up for the people. The people. The closest one so far has been Max. He actually had the guts to actually speak about some of it. Good on him.
Did you see the clip I ran from Max? Was it last night? Where he said that he doesn't know what the deep state is? Never heard of it?
Yeah, that one threw me. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, so that said to me right there, Rick, that they're all in it. And that leads me to this whole thing with the Durham stuff. Like, shit rolls downhill. It really does. And with Trudeau and Freeland being such tight buddies with Biden and Harris and stuff, and the Clintons, they're all in the club. Like, you can't tell me that all of this stuff ain't going to trickle in to Canada too, because we got Chinese stations, we've got Chinese interference being talked about. There's a whole lot of stuff like bubbling beneath the surface. And my biggest hope for both countries is that when the shit really does hit the fan, that Canada is going to finally get cracked wide open into the whole big picture with all of them, because they're all doing the same stuff. They wouldn't be such tight buddies and pals if they weren't laughing behind the scenes at all of us. And it makes me crazy how they talk, you know, Freeland, how she talks to us like we're, honestly, we're idiots. Like, she seems to think she's going to endlessly get away with, well, let me explain. Let me be very clear. And never, ever answers a doggone question, ever. And it's her dang job to answer our questions about these vital things. We're out here in the trenches suffering because every action that they pull on us. We're living it. They aren't. They're flying around in their big old cars and the planes and the blip and the bit, and you're going to eat bugs and you're not going to have this. Oh, but here's a few pittance, you know, for you to go buy another damn bug. So you can eat another damn bug while we go off and jet set around and you know, whatever. And I don't know about you, but did you see that picture of Trudeau taking a picture with the Korean president? And he spread his legs like a seesaw to make him look short. It was ridiculous. The man is an embarrassment. I mean, honest to God. between all their stupid photo ops and stuff, and when he was looking at the maps with the army people, it was laughable watching. I mean, it's embarrassing. All of it is embarrassing. And Canadians, they got to stop talking about Canadians like talking to us like we're idiots. Honestly, because we're not. We haven't been dumbing down enough. And they better start getting that. We're not stupid. Like, we see all this stuff. Anyway, see, this is why I didn't want to call, because I knew it was been bubbling in me. So anyways, we've got a lot of smoke here where I'm at. I don't see my view anymore. And oddly enough, the air doesn't smell super smoky to me, which is weird. So we have the smoke, but it's not like super smelly. It's kind of odd because it's not how, I'm used to it. But anyhow, I hope everyone stays safe. And I can't remember the lady's name, Cindy, I think it was. I hope her son is going to find some help and they get that all sorted. I mean, this is getting crazy what's happening. We're not even finished May. And I don't know. I'm with Fred. Something smells fishy to me. I don't know what. I don't have any theories or anything, but something smells real fishy. The timing of everything is just kind of ludicrous, So anyway, it's late and I need a glass of wine. And
what do you mean something
unwind.
Smells fishy?
I just mean something smells fishy. The timing of all this and the time of year, just everything.
Are you suggesting that?
No.
What are you suggesting?
I'm not suggesting anything. Well, just right now, my gut feeling is saying something's off. I don't know what. When I do know what, I'll call and let you know, though, if you really want me to.
See,
but right now, I don't know.
That kind of thing is those kind
off.
of comments, honestly, are driving me nuts. You know why?
Well,
because I've spent the last few nights allaying people's fears that are being stoked by comments.
Oh, I know.
Like that. Okay. And we've got people out there because of comments like that who right now are prepared to go around police to run into the fire.
No, I don't.
Because they think that there's
I don't agree with any of that.
And I know people who are out there doing crazy things right now that I ought not speak about here publicly. And it's being fueled by comments like that. And it's putting people in danger because it's making people crazy and angry.
All I said is something doesn't feel right. I never said any of these conspiracy theories, and I definitely don't agree with any of them. But something feels off to me. That's all.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. So don't pigeonhole me into that bullshit, please.
Okay,
thanks.
good.
That's,
because I'm very concerned about what I'm seeing out there with the lies.
Well,
as
am I. I saw that
S233 post.
I agree.
Stuff that was
all of that is
lie
bullshit.
About the vaccine mandates coming back, and then all this crap on social media about the government setting these fires on purpose. And I'm getting other information too from people who are honestly suffering from a degree of mental illness at this point, and it's very concerning.
Yeah, and speaking of mental illness, and I wanted to be able to mention this before I sign off. It was just tweeted across while I was waiting on hold, and it just sent shivers through me because apparently National Post put an article out saying that 1/3 of Canadians are fine with prescribing assisted suicide for no other reason than the fact that the patient is poor or homeless.
Yeah.
That is I don't even have words right now for that. I couldn't even absorb that. But for them to even right?
Yeah.
I think a big old deep dive into how this whole narrative is getting pushed further and further down the pike would be really useful for all of us, because the mud is slinging and it's getting murky, and that is more terrifying to me than what all these conspiracy theories of what people are. I mean, people's mental health is paramount, and people are tired. There's a term for it. There's an actual something weary, or there's a certain term that I can't think of it right now. But people are exhausted, like tired.
They are.
We've been inundated for over 3 years.
Yep.
And people are becoming a lot more vulnerable.
Absolutely,
and
they are.
I 100% agree that all these conspiracy theories are like, people gotta like take a deep breath and pull back, and
Yes, we do.
keep that stuff on the down low, big time, because there are vulnerable people that are going to fall victim to this damn maid business. In fact, I spoke to somebody messaged me on Twitter, and she said she was actually very terrified because she knows somebody who's actually talking about doing this, because they are tired and all of this. And she was asking my advice. Yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know how to answer this, right? I mean, I tried, and I haven't been updated yet. I've got to reach out to her and find out what happened. But he actually said that he would shut his Twitter off when he was ready to do it. I don't even know what direction to go. She doesn't know. Like, people are vulnerable. So people do need to, take their fingers off the trigger and take a deep breath and think. I mean, when I made a comment that something feels fishy, it has nothing to do with any of that. When I know, or if I think I know, I'll let you know. But no, nothing, no conspiracy craziness at all.
Okay.
Because that's dangerous shit. You don't want to do that. But anyhow, I think falling into the rabbit hole of MAID, I think would be worthwhile, because when I see more news stuff coming up like this, that is scary. I think we need to dig deeper and get to the bottom of this. And this is yet another thing that Pierre has been quiet about. He's not saying anything. He's too busy making his cute little videos. You see where I go with that? That's all. That kind of stuff makes me crazy. So anyway, I know it's late and you're tired. You've got that look.
Yeah,
and,
it's late. It's late.
But you know what I mean? Like, but anyways, to all the Maverick folk, hang in there. And I hope I didn't say too much and upset anybody or whatever. Like I said, I didn't plan on calling in, but everyone kept saying, call.
Call anytime. I love talking to you. I do.
Oh, well, bless your heart for that. I don't know. I trigger you sometimes. So you trigger me too sometimes.
Yeah, it's just because sometimes we don't agree on something, and that's what happens. That's okay.
But here's the beauty of that, though. We always manage to talk it out.
And you don't
Why
call me.
can't our darn politicians?
You've never called me a dingaling.
Not yet. Nope. Haven't had the urge.
Give it time. Call back on Friday. You can tell me to go F myself.
Well, you know that FU Friday is a thing, right?
It is.
Thanks to Leo.
I have to be.
Yeah,
I have to say, and you can maybe have an opinion on this. I'm getting some people.
Are you sure?
Some people pushing back on it, and I get it. And I have to admit, I'm not entirely comfortable with it. It's not really me.
I know you aren't.
Right? And
yeah,
it's like,
I know.
Like I can't. It's not really me. But people, they've suggested it. People seem to want it and like it. Other people now are saying, "Oh, no, please, you have to cancel it." I have a bunch of email messages from people about it.
Are you serious? Really?
Yeah. And other people saying,
well, you know what?
Yeah. No, I don't know what. You tell me what. Help me figure this one out.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. When I was a small child, saying that word was bad news bears, right?
Yep.
So I was always very, very careful. But as I grew up and, started learning that where the word came from and stuff, and I can't remember right now, don't ask me. But I realized it was just a great venting word. And it is. So touring in rock bands and stuff, I it was an awesome venting word when you have a yucca-futz in the audience that would do stupid stuff. And believe it or not, I had groupies too. Men weren't the only people that had groupies, And silly stuff would happen. And that word was an awesome venting word. I can't think of any other word that fits into that realm that helps you release whatever it is that word helps us release. It just says it all right in one word. And if people looked into the word, they should look into it, because it might be wiped off the internet now, for crying out loud. But I remember looking into the word itself, and it really isn't a bad word. It isn't. And it's an awesome venting word. So I think that's why a lot of people are sort of latching on to that. It's healthy. It's a good vent. And, let me tell you, calling in and saying, boo hoo true do, or, Mr. Dingaling Freeland, none of that works. It is the way you say the word. It is it's a good expressive word that covers everything. It releases frustration. And I knew you weren't comfortable with it, because I could see it. I could tell you weren't hiding anything as much as you tried to look comfortable about it, but you could see that you aren't. But I mean, I think, giving an opportunity for people to vent, especially after 3 years of the corks being in the bottle, I think you're on to something really good. And I'm sad that the people who want you to shut that whole idea down, as long as it's not the platforms, just kind of go with it. I mean, you're putting, if it was such a bad thing, you would think the platforms would have shut you down a long time ago, and they probably know the definition of the word, really. So,
it's just a little bit crude. And
it is a little tiny bit
lewd, and it's just
little.
Not to say that I've never used it, because I certainly have, and I did the other night.
I noticed. I know, that was funny. But I get it. But it's your show. You do what you gotta, and but I think a lot of people do look forward to it. There are times I'm comfortable using the word, and times I'm still not. It depends on the situation and the people I'm around, because I'm respectful of people. But if the platform is straight up, a venting thing, then I don't have to worry about holding that in per se, right? So I think that's part of the enjoyment of it for a lot of people. That's just my humble opinion. So that being said, it is Happy Hump Day, and hopefully I wake up in the morning, I can see my mountains again. And I got to get practicing, because I'm planning on doing some live streaming shows. I've been trying to, work on that. And so I'm trying not to spend so much time online. So I keep saying, I'm not going to watch this show and that show. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to do this. And then here I am, So thanks a lot, Rick.
Thank you.
It's all your fault I'm not practicing.
Well, thank you for calling in tonight. Appreciate it as always.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
All righty.
All
You
right.
have a good evening, and have a good night, everyone in the chat there. And till next time.
Okay. And there will be a next time for sure. See ya. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, folks. If you would like to support the show and Fred, let's bring Fred up here. Hello, there's Fred. Hello, Fred. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by donating at, let me see if I can find that, freedomreporters.com. Or you can support the channel by donating through the Give, Send, Go over at maverickdonations.com. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that on YouTube. Make sure you hit the notification bell as well. And please, 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 please consider subscribing over on Rumble. We're growing over there. We have 2 channels on Rumble, broadcasting on both tonight. And And yeah, it's important that we grow over there because they are these sort of the less censorship platform. We'll put it that way. And I will be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And remember that Jeremy will be back as well with a second part to our interview. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking more politics and some of the documentary work that he has done in that vein. So really looking forward to that very much. Really, I have to say thank you again to him for joining us on the program tonight. Jeremy Pilon-Berlin, documentary and film producer, director of Murders at the Burger Joint, and a bunch of other documentaries that we will discuss in more depth tomorrow evening, right here on the Maverick News Channel, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.